Chapter 635. Behind him, Nan Qi almost choked on his own saliva. What did Tai Yi say just now? Dozens of jewelry. Nan Qi sneaked a peek at the table. Sure enough, the box on the table was exquisitely made. It was a small box with intricate patterns carved on it. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be a tiger's head. What was that? Xie Jingxing opened the box and took a look. It was filled to the brim with all kinds of jewelry. Cat's eye ring, jade bracelet, pearl head mask, jade hairpin. All of these items were of excellent quality. Just this small box alone was worth thousands of gold coins. Nan Qi thought in his heart, could it be that this was something to give to the young lady of the Shen family? But the young lady of the Shen family did not seem to have the temperament to be fond of jewels and jade. Master, are you sure you're going to give this away? However, he was generous enough. Xie Jingxing closed the box and said, correct. Suddenly he thought of something and asked, what recent movements does Fu Xiuyi have? Tai Yi thought for a moment and said, there is no movement. He is just slightly closer to the Crown Prince. Crown Prince. Xie Jingxing raised an eyebrow and said, watch him carefully. Fu Xiuyi is not a simple character. Tai Yi acknowledged and was about to leave. Wait. Xie Jingxing called out to him, Shen you also pay attention. One did not know what kind of luck the Shen family had these few days as they were in a mess all day long. First there was the matter of Shen Dongling and Shen Yu exchanging marriage, then there was the matter of the Wang family not accepting Shen Yu, and afterwards Shen Yu simply carried the burden and ran away. Now it was even better as Chen Roqiu caught Chang Zhaoqing and Shen Wan in bed. As a guest of the Shen residence and the daughter of old General Shen's old friend, Zhang Zaiqing's relationship with the Shen residence should be polite. Other than old Shen Furen, the rest of the people would politely deal with Zhang Zaiqing when they saw her because the current matriarch of the household, Chen Roqiu, seemed to like her very much. Who knew that Zhang Zaiqing was so polite that she would be so polite to Shen Wan's couch? And Chen Ruoqiu was stabbed in the back by none other than her own, meticulous, younger sister. Chen Ruoqiu immediately started to make a ruckus all the way to Rongjing Tang. In Rongjing Tang, old Shen Furen was sitting in the middle position. Chang Zaiqing and Shen Wan stood at the side. Shen Wan did not have any expression and Shen Gui had an expression of watching a good show. Chang Zaiqing's eyes drooped and did not speak, as if she was very ashamed. His son Chen Roqiu forced herself to keep back her tears and put on an attitude of not giving up. That's enough. Stop crying. As if she was finally fed up with Chen Roqiu's actions, old Shen Furen said impatiently, what is the matter with your own husband taking in a young lady that it is worth you to cry to the heavens? Mother. Chen Roqiu shouted, if master himself takes in young lady and promote her as a concubine, this daughter-in-law would naturally not say anything and would even take the initiative to prepare for husband. But the two of them did this in front of me, without making a sound, in this courtyard. The entire courtyard kept me in the dark. They were clearly trying to humiliate me. Mother, I am also your daughter-in-law, and you are also a woman. If my husband wants to take a concubine, how can I stop him? Why is there a need to use such a humiliating method? Third Furen. Zhang Zaiqing could not help but speak, today's matter is all a misunderstanding. It was me who drank too much and it has nothing to do with third master. Zaiqing will not be anyone's concubine and treat this matter as if it did not happen. Tomorrow I will pack up and leave the Shen residence. One hope that older sister will not blame third master. Compared to Chen Roqiu's aggressiveness, Zhang Zaiqing did not deny the involvement with Shen Wan, but put all the blame on herself, making herself seem to be more reasonable. Shen Wan's expression slightly changed and said, what leaving? Naturally I should give you an explanation for the things that I did. Chapter 636. Chen Roqiu originally felt that Chang Zaiqing's words were somewhat ear-piercing and at this moment when she heard that Shen Wan was still trying to keep Chang Zaiqing, it added oil to the fire and immediately said, explain? How do you explain? Are you going to chase me away and give the position of legal wife to her? Finishing, she turned her head to look at Chang Ziqing and pointed at Chang Ziqing's nose as she scolded, "Good white-eyed wolf. You came to the Shen residence and it was me who provided for you to eat and wear. Who knew that you actually have such evil intentions and even climb onto brother-in-law's bed? Really shameless. Unable to seduce Shen Xian, you came to seduce other people's husband. No wonder one is unable to marry at such an old age. Which proper son would dare to want such a slut that offends public morals?" Not only Shen Wan was stunned by her words, even old Shen Furen was somewhat stunned. Chen Roqiu, who boasted of being from a scholarly family, was scolding like a shrew on the streets. This scene was a little too ugly to look at. Shen Wan was so angry that he could not speak and Chang Ziqing bit her lips and her expression was very forbearing. It was Shen Gui who was watching the show at the side that could not help but say something. "Younger sister-in-law, this is not right of you. If one's husband wants to take in a concubine, you as a Furen naturally have to help manage it. Originally there was no one else in the 3 courtyards and it is somewhat unreasonable. It is not easy to find a sister that can share your worries, so why are you still blocking it?" Shen Gui was originally lustful and naturally favored a beauty like Chang Ziqing, but since Chang Ziqing was Shen Wan's person, he would not touch his brother's woman. But Chen Roqiu's shrew behavior made Shen Gui look down on her. In the beginning when Ren Wanyun was around, she did not stop him from taking in a concubine. But the current Chen Roqiu was already extremely sensitive and not only did Shen Gui's words not appease her, it made her feel like her foot was stepped on. She immediately scolded Shen Gui without distinguishing between right and wrong. Second older brother actually still have the leisure to care about the matters of the third household. One fear that second older brother's own matters have not been taken care of. Now that there is no more descendants, what is the use of bringing in 8 or 10 more? There is still no one to carry on the family line. It was Shen Gui's pain to not be able to have any children in this lifetime, but who knew that Chen Roqiu would poke Shen Gui's life door? Shen Gui was so angry that his face turned green and old Shen Furen's expression did not look good. "Lady Chen, then what do you want?" Old Shen Furen said angrily. "I've been married to the Shen family for so many years, I'm not an unreasonable person. Chase Chang Ziqing out and I can treat it as nothing has happened." Chen Roqiu said. "Impossible." Shen Wan said angrily, "Since I touched her, I naturally have to take responsibility for her. Anyone can, just not her." Chen Roqiu pointed at Chang Ziqing and shouted. She could not tolerate that Chang Ziqing actually betrayed her and finally climbed onto Shen Wan's bed. This made her feel like she had suffered a great humiliation. The most important thing was that Chen Roqiu understood Chang Ziqing too well. Chang Ziqing's talent was not inferior to hers and her temperament and appearance was also good. Even if it was Chen Roqiu herself, it was difficult to have any ill feelings towards Chang Ziqing. Especially now that the matter had come to this point, Shen Wan's words were intentionally or unintentionally protecting Chang Ziqing, which made Chen Roqiu feel a sense of crisis in her heart. As a female, she understood Shen Wan's thoughts better than anyone else. One fear that after Chang Ziqing entered the door, not only would they have to share favors, it was even possible to have exclusive favors. It was impossible for her to find such a big rival for herself. Why can't she? The one who spoke was not anyone else but Shen Wan. At this moment Shen Wan was also unable to restrain his anger. Most likely it was because Chen Roqiu had a gentle and graceful appearance in front of him for so many years, but today she was like an unreasonable shrew, making Shen Wan feel that she was unbearable. Chen Roqiu said angrily, "Then divorce me. If you want to accept her, then divorce me first." Chapter 637. This made Shen Wan so angry that he was flipped upside down. Chen Roqiu however seemed to suddenly have confidence and became more aggressive. "After obtaining a separation letter, naturally I will leave without a second word. You can take in whoever you like and it is not a problem to promote. After all, we bridge to bridge and road to road, one parting and both are happy. After saying that, 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. In the end, she looked quite pitiful. Chen Rochio's words were said out of anger. She and Xinhuan were a young married couple, and even if there were many contradictions these days, they were in harmony for so many years. Chen Rochio understood Xinhuan and knew that Xinhuan still had some feelings for her. Now he was only blinded by Zhang Ziqing, and it was impossible for Xinhuan to divorce her because of Zhang Ziqing. Unfortunately, Chen Rochio calculated that Xinhuan still had feelings for her but did not calculate old Xinfuren's attitude. Old Xinfuren sneered and looked at Chen Rochio as if she was looking at a jumping clown. Separation? You wish, but I'm afraid you've miscalculated. It is impossible for number 3 to give you a separation letter and at most give you a divorce letter. Zhang Ziqing, who was about to speak, swallowed the words in her mouth when she heard it. Chen Rochio was not to be outdone and asked, "Why must I be given a divorce letter?" "Why?" Old Xinfuren looked at her. "Ever since number 3 married you into the household, there were no other young ladies in the courtyard. Not to mention concubines, there was not even a Tong Fong. As the matriarch, you do not think of arranging things for your husband. This is being jealous and immoral. Number 3 is magnanimous, and I also do not want to intervene in number 3's courtyard matters, but after so many years, Chen Rochio, you have calculated. You have been in the Shen residence for nearly 20 years and have not given birth to a male or female for the 3rd household. Let me ask you, who in the Ding capital is like you, to marry into one's husband's family and not give birth to a son, but also not let one's husband give birth to a son with others? Do you want my Shen family to have no descendants? You are jealous and have no children. Just these 2 out of the 7 rules are enough to grant you a divorce letter. If one were to say that old Xinfuren came from the streets and did not have much experience, but when arguing with others, she would not suffer a loss in words. Especially since she had resentment towards Chen Rochio, now that she caught Chen Rochio in the wrong, her resentment rose steadily, making Chen Rochio speechless. Yes, just based on the fact that there was no heir, the Shen family could push all the blame onto Chen Rochio. Even if it was in public, Chen Rochio would be the one being pointed out. A trace of helplessness flashed across Chen Rochio's heart. She had always thought that she had firmly grasped Xinhuan's heart and also thought that she and Xinhuan would be in love for a lifetime. But until now, Xinhuan's attitude of protecting Zhang Ziqing was like a ruthless slap that smashed Chen Rochio's self-righteousness. Xinhuan was no different from other men. He was still greedy for fresh things. She was no different from other women. Once she was old, she would have to give way to younger women. But those old women still had sons by their side and could sit firmly in the position of the matriarch of the family. She did not even have a son, thus this position was in jeopardy. Old Xinfuren looked at Zhang Ziqing and slowly said, "Number 3, since you have touched others, my Shen family is not an unreasonable person and naturally have to take responsibility. There is no one left in Chang young lady's family, and if Chang young lady agrees, it is better to go through the open path and bring up a noble concubine. There is a lot of bad luck in this residence, so it should be washed away." Bringing up a noble concubine. Old Xinfuren was clearly deliberately going against Chen Rochio and was putting Chen Rochio's face down. Chen Rochio looked at old Xinfuren, and on old Xinfuren's wrinkled face, there seemed to be a flash of a smile. That smile made Chen Rochio's heart enlightened. How did she find out about Zhang Ziqing and Xinhuan? It was when old Xinfuren instructed her to go to the western courtyard to deliver the cloth. It was not earlier or later, but at that time. Could it be that old Xinfuren did it on purpose? These days she was worried about Xinyu and could not care about other things. She did not find out about Zhang Ziqing and Xinhuan, but old Xinfuren might have found out about it. Old Xinfuren wholeheartedly wanted to bring a concubine for Xinhuan and found out that Zhang Ziqing and Xinhuan were in contact, one fear that she would not be happy, and perhaps she added fuel to the fire just for today's situation. To let Sang Zaiqing enter the residence and force her to such a situation. Old Shen Furen. Chen Roqiu's heart suddenly gave birth to infinite hatred as she gritted her teeth, such humiliation. Unreasonable. Chapter 638. The general's residence in the Ding capital was originally decorated with flowers, and in the eyes of outsiders, it was only revered. But whenever the general's residence was mentioned, everyone would think of the formidable great general's hard work and heroic horse riding. But ever since the first household separated from the Shen family 2 years ago and were removed from the Shen family, the general's residence declined at a speed visible to others. Even though Shen Gui and Shen Wan tried their best to use their careers to support the former glory of the general's residence, unfortunately the paths of scholars and military officials were different. Scholars relied on their brains and mouths, and if they wanted to obtain meritorious services, it would take a long time. Military officials were different. After fighting a battle and cutting off a few heads of the enemy, they could gain the respect of the people. After the decline of the general's residence, even though there was still a name, it was not as attractive as before. These few days, it was not easy to attract people's attention again, but bad news spread for 1,000 li. The most surprising thing was the matter in front of one's eyes. One did not know when it started, but there was a rumor circulating in the streets that the third master of the third household of the Shen family, Shen Wan, intended to divorce his wife. Among the 3 sons of the Shen family, other than Shen Xian, even though Shen Gui was smooth, he was too lustful and did not do things clearly. Shen Wan, on the other hand, was different from his second brother. He was clean and honest, and he was not overly lustful towards women. Although he would play around with his colleagues, he would not cause any messy trouble. He also cherished his feathers, and in everyone's eyes, he was a sophisticated and talented person. If he could endure for a few more years, his position would most likely be higher and higher. And those officials' Furens also had a good impression of Shen Wan. Not because of anything else, but because Shen Wan doted on his wife and daughter and did not have any other female in the inner courtyard. It was inevitable that those officials' Furens would have some messy matters in their courtyards and treated Chen Roqiu with jealousy and envy. After all, it was not every day to meet a husband who only treated one person well. Who knew that at this critical juncture, when Shen Yu was already married, Chen Roqiu and Shen Wan suddenly had the matter of divorcing their wives? The rumors in the streets were all true, so one said, that is not so. One heard that it was because third Shen Furen did not have a son. You see, now there is not a single grandson in the Shen residence, one cannot just end the line like this. Not to mention that second Master Shen brought concubines into the residence one after another, he also had 2 sons in the past. The third branch has never had a son. No wonder they are so anxious now. Speaking of which, third Master Shen's career is not bad. With such a big family business, it is a pity that there is no one to inherit it in the future. That Miss Chen's stomach doesn't live up to expectations and she can't give birth to a son after all these years. She doesn't even allow her husband to take a concubine, she is truly rude. Normal people wouldn't have this kind of attitude. If I was third Master Shen, I would not be able to bear it. Even concubines are not allowed. TSK, such a virtuous and jealous woman, but still childless. It can be considered as one of a kind. Third Shen Furen is really pitiful. The rumors in the entire Ding capital were all on Shen Wan's side. Chen Roqiu was originally a famous talented female in the Ding capital and came from a scholarly family, thus she was very popular in the circle of noble Furens. But this time, no matter if it was the common people or those matrons who flattered her or were on good terms with her, all of them unanimously accused her of wrongdoing. Perhaps it was because Chen Roqiu lived too blissfully in front of everyone that it made others jealous, but now that that blissful life had a tendency to burst out, everyone was happy to gloat or hit her when she was down. In the Shen residence, Chen Roqiu smashed the white porcelain vase in front of her with a bang, and the vase splashed into pieces on the floor. The floor was full of dregs, but Chen Roqiu still could not vent her hatred and overturned the teacups on the table. Shi Qing and Hua Yi did not even dare to breathe loudly and allowed Chen Roqiu to create such a big movement. Chapter 639. Shameless, shameless. Chen Roqiu screamed, "That pair of adulterers forced me to such a situation and it is actually my fault. Ridiculous. Idiot." The rumors outside were all unfavorable to Chen Roqiu, and Chen Roqiu had always wanted to save face and always boasted that she was a young lady from a scholarly family. Now that she was said to be a shrew who was jealous and had no children, how would she be willing? It must be that slut who talked nonsense outside. Chen Roqiu gritted her teeth. She had mentioned the divorce letter to Xinhuan in a fit of pique. She had merely wanted to scare Xinhuan. Who knew that this news would spread to everyone on the streets and alleys, almost pushing her and Xinhuan to an irreconcilable point. The most disappointing thing was that Xinhuan hadn't even come to see her until now. It must be that slut who urged master. Chen Roqiu's nails dug deep into her palms. Old Xinfuren was now deliberately promoting Cang Ziqing to go against her. Now that Xin Yu's whereabouts were unknown and Xinhuan was bewitched by Cang Ziqing, in such a big Xin residence, there was actually no one standing by her side. One feared that the entire Ding capital would feel that she was the one in the wrong. Chen Roqiu's heart suddenly felt a sense of helplessness of fighting alone. "Madam, now that the old madam has given the order, what exactly should we do next?" Hua Yi finally couldn't help but ask. Either let Cang Ziqing enter the residence as a noble concubine or let Xinhuan write a divorce letter. No matter which it was, Chen Roqiu could not accept it. But in the Xin residence, she was indeed powerless. At this moment, her love for Xinhuan had completely turned into hatred. She suddenly stood up and sneered, "How can there be such a cheap thing in this world? The Xin family humiliated me, could it be that I still have to comply? Pack up, I want to go back to the Chen family." Chen Roqiu returned to her maiden home. Master Chen was a prefectural official and was responsible for repairing all the big and small documents in Ming Qi's palace. Because he was a civil official and was well-read, Chen Roqiu had always considered herself to be from a scholarly family. Moreover, when old Master Chen was young, he was indeed the top scorer of the imperial court. Chen Roqiu's marriage to Xinhuan also had the intention of a marriage alliance between the Chen and Xin family. Of course, it was Xinhuan himself who chose Chen Roqiu. Even though Master Chen was not a person who was protective of his shortcomings, he paid great attention to the family's reputation. Especially that pretentious and virtuous manner which was almost the same as Chen Roqiu. Thus when Chen Roqiu was divorced or had the reputation of being jealous, old Master Chen would definitely be unhappy. The Chen family and the Xin family were destined to have an unclear lawsuit. When Xin Miao heard these words from Jingzhi's mouth, she was reading under the lamp. Jingzhi said, now that third Furen had returned to her maiden home, this matter would not be left at that. If they found out that those rumors were spread by young lady, what would happen? Those rumors in the marketplace were not spread by Cang Ziqing, nor was it spread by Xinhuan, nor was it spread by old Xinfuren, but by Xin Miao. Xin Miao had interacted with the third household for a lifetime and knew that even though Chen Roqiu thought highly of herself and loved Xinhuan deeply, unfortunately she was not stupid. When she just found out about Xinhuan and Cang Ziqing's adultery, she would definitely be infuriated and do things impulsively. But after thinking about it, she knew that if she put on some grievances in front of Xinhuan, Xinhuan would not completely forget about the old feelings towards Chen Roqiu and would soften a little. At that time when Cang Ziqing enters the door, it would not be known who would emerge victorious between Chen Roqiu and Cang Ziqing, but at least Chen Roqiu would not be defeated so easily. It would be better to let out some rumors. Chen Roqiu's heart would be even angrier and her relationship with Xinhuan would only reach an irreparable stage. A female's vengeful heart was very scary and it would be more interesting to stir up trouble. As a matter of fact, Chen Roqiu was really forced to return to her maiden home. Chapter 640. After taking this step, it would be very difficult to turn back. There would be cracks in both parties' hearts, and the reunion of broken mirrors was a story that would only appear in dramas. Shen Miao felt that there were many things that she could not see clearly in the inner palace in her previous life, but now from a different angle, with an outsider's identity, it was clear at a glance. To play with others in the palm of one's hand, even if it was an enemy, her mood was not that good. Perhaps it was because she would also think that when Mei Furen looked at her, it was the same as how she looked at Chen Roqiu now. Do not worry. After pausing for a moment, she then said, it would not be that easy to find out. She had handed this matter over to the Feng Xian pawn shop to handle, and since she had accepted the money, Ji Yushu would definitely give her a good reward. The Feng Xian pawn shop had been doing business in the Ding capital for so long, so it was impossible that they did not understand this little thing. Jing Zhi did not speak anymore, and seeing that the window outside was not closed, she wanted to get up and close it. As she was leaving, she said, "Why did you forget to close the window all day? The weather is so cold and the cold wind would enter. What if young lady's body catches a cold?" "Wait." Shen Miao called out to her and looked at the window, "Let the air in first. The room is very stuffy. Later I will close it myself." When Jing Zhi saw Shen Miao's determined look, even though she had some doubts in her heart as to where it was stuffy in this bright room, she did not say anything. She then fried the wick of the oil lamp for Shen Miao and said, "Young lady should also rest early." Jing Zhi withdrew. Shen Miao looked at the slightly swaying candle flame and was about to pick it up and walk to the side. Just as she was halfway there, that candle flame seemed to be flicked by something and shook violently. A familiar voice sounded, and with a playful laziness that had not been heard for a long time, "Did you not specially leave the door open for me? Why do you want to sleep?" Shen Miao turned her head back and saw the youth leaning on the window sill with one hand supporting his chin. A pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes casually looked over, lazy and charming. Even in the darkness of the night, one would not be able to ignore his radiance. He saw that Shen Miao was slightly startled and his figure flashed and entered the room. Naturally he snatched the oil lamp from Shen Miao's hands and walked to the small table to sit down. His actions were as smooth as flowing water, as if he was entering his own room. "You have returned?" Shen Miao asked. Tsk, Xie Jingxing stared at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Why, did you miss me?" Shen Miao was used to his frivolous and ambiguous words and simply ignored him. He walked over to the small table and sat down. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows, "You did well regarding Chen Roqiu's matter." Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him, "You know again." Xie Jingxing's informants were all over the Ding capital, not to mention that Ji Yushu of the Feng Xian pawn shop had some relationship with Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao let Ji Yushu go out to spread rumors and one fear that Ji Yushu would tell Xie Jingxing about it, so Shen Miao did not care about it now. No wonder when Chang Ziqing came to the Ding capital, you had such an attitude. Xie Jingxing however was talking to himself and looked at Shen Miao again. One could not tell if his tone was admiration or sigh as he said half-truthfully, "Really vicious and merciless." Shen Miao declined to comment. Xie Jingxing seemed to have thought of something and one did not know where he took out a box and threw it into Shen Miao's arms. Shen Miao was almost hit by that box and felt that the small box was heavy. When she subconsciously caught it, she saw that there was a big tiger carved on the outer shell of the box. The tiger's head was lively and had a bit of charmingly naive look, but the appearance of it baring its fangs and brandishing its claws was very fierce. Thinking of the white tiger called Jiao Jiao that Xie Jingxing raised, Shen Miao endured the anger in her heart and opened the box. When she opened it, she was almost dazzled by the colorful things in the box. She saw that the heavy box was filled with exquisite and luxurious jewelry. Not to mention that it was a full box, even if it was just a single piece, it would be expensive. Why would Xie Jingxing give her jewelry for no reason? Shen Miao looked at him and shook her head, "I do not need jewelry." Chapter 641. Xie Jingxing said, "These are all valuable and hard to find. You're a girl, what's wrong with buying some jewelry?" Shen Miao thought about it and asked, "Perhaps Feng Xian pawn shop can pawn it." Xie Jingxing choked on her words and asked with a frown, "Are you short of money?" Having more money is always a good thing. Many connections require money, and after a long time, it is inevitable that money will be tight. Shen Miao said frankly. Now that he was facing Xie Jingxing, he was not as vigilant as before, thus his words were filled with anger. Anyway, Xie Jingxing's hands and eyes were everywhere, and there were some things that he would be able to find out by himself even if she did not tell him, so there was no need to go through the trouble of hiding it. When Xie Jingxing heard it, he took out a round jade token from his sleeves and said, "This is the gold and jade private bank's token. Take this and withdraw however much money you want." He casually threw the jade token to Shen Miao and said with some displeasure, "Don't be so blind all day." Shen Miao. She was after all an empress in her past life and had seen a lot of gold and silver treasures. It was during her youth that she was fostered by the second and third household to have some vulgar tastes. Afterwards in the palace and in the Qin country, she was considered to have a lot of knowledge, but now she was written with a few stars and said that she had no eyesight, which made her feel somewhat sullen. But she picked up the jade tablet. She didn't know what material the jade tablet was made of. It was crystal clear and cold to the touch. Shen Miao knew that Xie Jingxing's words would definitely not lie. This jade tablet was indeed able to withdraw banknotes from Jin and Yu Private Bank. It was just that Jin and Yu Private Bank was the largest private bank in Mingqi, and even the imperial family would sometimes come and go from there. Xie Jingxing was now a person of the Great Liang, and to think that he could get this kind of thing, he was really too deep. Shen Miao returned the jade token back to Xie Jingxing and said, "One will not receive a reward without doing anything." Xie Jingxing stared at her with interest and said, "Really have backbone." He nodded his head to indicate Shen Miao to look at the box. "This is not ordinary jewelry. Take a look." Shen Miao was somewhat suspicious and casually picked up a pair of jadeite rings. That jadeite was of excellent quality, and even if it was placed in a jewelry shop, it would most likely be a good item. As Shen Miao looked at it, she noticed that the buckle of the double hoop was somewhat strange. After carefully touching it, it was actually a hidden buckle. She looked up at Xie Jingxing. "What is this?" Xie Jingxing smiled. "Concealed weapon." "Concealed weapon?" Shen Miao fiddled with the hidden button and was about to press it down subconsciously, but was stopped by Xie Jingxing. Immediately following that, Xie Jingxing stood up and went around to her back. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders and taught her how to use the jade bracelets. "There are needles here. The poison needles might hurt our own people. Ordinary people will be knocked unconscious for a while if they are hit by the needles. It is effective within 3 inches. Don't put it anywhere. There's poison powder in the hairpin. Pulling out the hairpin can blind you. It can be used to deal with bandits. There's a blade hidden in the bracelet. Pull it open, and it's a small knife. If you are tied up with a rope, this substitute knife can cut the rope. There is a whistle in the 8 treasures earrings. If it is really urgent, you can blow the whistle. My people are everywhere in the Ding capital, and if there is any danger, they will rush over to save you," he carefully explained to Shen Miao one by one, and his words were not as frivolous and lazy as usual. Now that Xin Yu had entered the residence of Prince Qin, no one would be able to predict what kind of changes would happen in the future. Shen Miao touched her chest and saw that box. She reached over and picked out a pair of jade bracelets from the box and wore it on her hand. The emerald green bracelets made her wrist more slender and fair like a painting. It was originally an ice-cold jade ornament, but Shen Miao felt that it was slightly hot, just like a youth's eyes. Chapter 643. She rubbed her hair irritably and closed the box, but inadvertently saw that beside the box, there was a jade token lying quietly. Jinyu Private Bank's token. She had obviously returned it to Xia Jingxing but did not know when Xia Jingxing threw it here. It seemed that he did it on purpose. Shen Miao had never seen anyone give such a large amount of money to others, so Shen Miao felt pity for the great Liang's Emperor Yongluo. After keeping the jade token, Shen Miao shook her head and thought that if she were to meet Xia Jingxing in the future, she would have to return this thing to him. In the residence of Prince Qin, deep into the night, there was a female sitting in front of the mirror to dress up. The female sitting in front of the mirror was also at the age of youth and was considered to be dainty and beautiful. Especially with the faint scholarly smell that was emitted from her body, she was considered to be a special beauty. At this moment she was wearing a snow-white inner garment and looking at the mirror. She was clearly a beautiful flower, but her expression was somewhat gloomy. This person was not anyone else but Shen Yu, who had been missing for many days in the Shen residence. Shen Yu had never thought that one day she would have a relationship with the crown prince of the Qin country. Originally she planned to leave home and head to the residence of Prince Ding. She thought that Fu Xiaoyi had a gentle gentleman's temperament, and she was also the daughter of the third household of the Shen family. Fu Xiaoyi would not sit idly by and ignore her even if they were colleagues. Moreover, she was born beautiful and had a friendly temperament with unlimited talent in poetry and painting. Even a stone person would not be moved. At that time she only needed to tell of her grievances in front of Prince Ding and obtain Prince Ding's love. She would be able to win over Prince Ding's heart. But she had never left the residence alone before, so how would she know where the residence of Prince Ding was? After asking for the location of others, she was afraid that the servants of the Shen family would chase after her and had no choice but to hide. There were often such females in the Ding capital who either escaped from marriage or committed a crime and escaped from home. A female who was alone was the easiest to be targeted. Shen Yu was also targeted by others. The people who targeted her were a group of local ruffians, and before she could find the residence of Prince Ding, something happened in a remote alley. Those ruffians snatched her bag and even wanted to insult her innocence. In a moment of desperation, Shen Yu could only shout out that she was the niece of the formidable great general. Although she was not reconciled, Shen Yu's heart was clear. His father's name was not as resounding as Shen Wan's name, especially now that Shen Xian had returned to the Ding capital and obtained the heavy responsibility of Emperor Wen Hui. Compared to the past, it was better to call out Shen Xian's name as a deterrent. In the end, someone happened to pass by, heard her shout, and saved the examiner. It was only later that Shen Yu found out that this person was from the residence of Prince Qin. Then Shen Yu saw Huang Fu Hao. Shen Yu only saw Huang Fu Hao once at the tribute banquet, and as the other party had a noble status, she did not dare to do anything out of line. This time she thought that it was Huang Fu Hao who helped her conveniently, so Shen Yu thanked him properly. Who knew that Huang Fu Hao seemed to be very interested in her? To be exact, he was very interested in Shen Miao and actually asked a lot of things about Shen Yu. Shen Yu felt that Huang Fu Hao most likely took a fancy to Shen Miao, and her heart was even more jealous. No matter what, Huang Fu Hao was the crown prince of Qin Kingdom, and one day, he would become the emperor of Qin Kingdom. If Shen Miao and Huang Fu Hao were to be together, Shen Miao would be the crown prince's consort, and in the future she would be the empress of Qin country. Shen Miao would be a Sufei and could also be a Guifei. No matter what, there would be endless glory and wealth. Thus, Shen Yu said a lot of Shen Miao's faults. She slowly and faintly revealed that Shen Miao was a scheming and untalented female. Sure enough, after Shen Yu finished speaking, she saw that Huang Fu Hao's expression was not good. This made Shen Yu's heart very pleased. Huang Fu Hao planned to send Shen Yu back, but Shen Yu heard that Shen Wan wanted to divorce Chen Rouqiu, and the fact that Chen Rouqiu returned to her maiden family in a fit of anger. The moment Shen Yu heard it, she was unable to restrain her anger and planned to return to the residence to seek justice for her mother. But just as she was about to leave, she thought that if she were to return now, Shen Wan would definitely marry Wang Bai as a pinchi. Now in the Shen residence, Shen Wan and old Shen Furen were still angry because of the matter of her and Shen Dongling exchanging marriage, so there would not be any good fruit to eat when she returned. Shen Yu could not think of any good ideas and was also not willing to see Chen Roqiu suffer. One had to know that once Chen Roqiu was divorced, even her identity as a D daughter would be implicated, and in the future she would not have a foothold in the Shen residence. Shen Yu already had a lot of resentment towards Shen Wan and old Shen Furen, and this time she was even more unreconciled. Until the end, she thought of an idea. Huang Fu Hao was the crown prince of Qin country and his power was monstrous. If Huang Fu Hao were to take action, perhaps everything would be much simpler. As for her, she only needed to please Huang Fu Hao. She must stay in the residence of Prince Qin to prevent the Shen family from finding and manipulating her. Chapter 644. After a few days of light snow in the Ding capital, the skies finally cleared up. Shen Miao was in the courtyard drying the books, and they were all military books that Shen Qiu brought over. These few days in the room, one feared that mold would grow and she had to dry them clean. Jingzhe and Guyu were drying the bedding in the courtyard when Jingzhe said, "One heard that the lawsuit between the Chen and Shen family is very lively and many people are watching. Now that it has been dragged for so long, one do not know what the final result would be." "What other result can there be? Both sides are doing a thankless job." Guyu disdainfully said, "To bring the family matters to court, it is really a joke. Fortunately Master and Furen separated early, otherwise, they might be implicated together. Chen Roqiu's maiden family and the Shen family started a lawsuit. Old Master Chen was a stubborn old man who cared about his face and didn't want to admit defeat. He had to fight for everything and wouldn't allow himself to be the one in the wrong. Although Chen Roqiu was already married, old Master Chen still had to protect Chen Roqiu's reputation. This was naturally not because he loved Chen Roqiu but because he did not allow the Shen family to look down on the Chen family. Chen Roqiu's mother was a powerful one. Her heart ached for Chen Roqiu, and with a few words, she managed to persuade Master Chen to fight a lawsuit with the Shen family regarding the divorce. The Chen family said that when Chen Roqiu married into the Shen residence, she was conscientious and managed the family business for Shen Wan. She also wanted to bring in concubines for Shen Wan, but it was Shen Wan who refused. Chen Roqiu had married into the Shen residence for many years and everyone outside knew that she was educated and reasonable, gentle and graceful. Now, for the sake of a woman of unknown origin who had come to seek shelter, he had to divorce his wife. This was truly a case of spoiling the concubine to the detriment of the wife. As for the Shen family, they said that even though Chen Roqiu was the mistress, she was unable to give birth to a son and did not want to help her husband to take in a few more concubines. Now that her husband was taking in more people, she even obstructed him, showing that she was very jealous. One said the mother-in-law was unkind, and the other said the daughter-in-law was unfilial. What a big farce. The passers-by in the Ding capital were watching with relish. In the end, the petition was submitted to the Yamen. The Yamen rarely handled such cases. Moreover, this lawsuit wasn't a big deal. The Qin family's master was a prefectural official and Shen Wan's official position wasn't a small official. He couldn't afford to offend either side, so he could only drag it out. Shen Wan and Chen Ruoqiu's fate as husband and wife had come to an end in this lawsuit. Firstly, it was because Shen Wan was after all an official of the court, yet he was involved in a lawsuit because of a family matter. Those imperial censors who were always idling around all day finally found someone who could be of help and naturally would not let him go. Shen Wan's career would be obstructed because of this. Secondly, it was because Chang Ziqing was pregnant. It could be said that Zhang Ziqing's body came at the right time. To be pregnant at this juncture, it almost pushed Chen Roqiu out. Even though Shen Wan had doted on Chen Roqiu for so many years, it did not mean that he did not look forward to his son. If Chang Ziqing was pregnant with a son, then he would have someone to carry on the family line in this lifetime. Thus the more one looked at Chang Ziqing, the more one felt that Chang Ziqing was good, while Chen Roqiu had become a piece of cloth that was despised, and one did not even take a look at her. Shen Miao smiled gently, do not forget to bribe some money to the Darren in the yamen. Guyu complied and was somewhat puzzled as she asked, is young lady helping third master or third furin? Which side are these tails of silver going to? Shin Miao let Guyu take some money to bribe the people in the yamen, but one did not know who Shin Miao was bribing as Shin Miao's letter had not been seen by them. Guyu softly said, it is better not to get involved in this kind of matter. That family is not a good person. Even though her voice was soft, it was still heard by Shin Miao. Shin Miao said, neither side. Fighting a lawsuit was the most expensive thing to burn money. Poor families would fight a lawsuit barehanded, so the case would be concluded very quickly. But those who had a little bit of wealth would mostly persevere for a few more days. It was not because of anything else. The people in the yamen also wanted to fish for money. The longer the lawsuit, the more the yamen would fish. Chapter 645. In Shin Miao's previous life in the palace, she had seen Fu Xiu-yi wanting to deal with a court official. That court official was originally Prince Shou's person and Fu Xiu-yi wanted to deal with him but could not do it openly, so he schemed that court official to be involved in a lawsuit and at the end he lost his entire family's fortune. The yamen and medical centers were the places that required the most money. Shin Miao only had to think that Shin Wan and Chen Roqiu, these two people, in their previous lifetime, also did not hold back their efforts in framing the first household of the Shin family. She could not wait to tear up these two hypocritical people. Wouldn't it be the biggest joke in the world if a husband and wife, who were originally refined people, had to go to court? Moreover, Shin Miao had to fork out some money herself to remind the yamen's people to drag on the case a little longer. Not to mention losing one's family fortune, the Shen and Chen family's vitality would be greatly damaged. Moreover, Shin Wan and Chen Roqiu were both people who wanted face, so this time round it was absolutely impossible for them to reconcile. Nothing could be more perfect than this. Shin Miao's gaze turned slightly cold, but Chang Ziqing was actually pregnant at this time. Thinking of the role that Chang Ziqing played in Luo Shuiyan's death in the previous lifetime, Shin Miao could not help but sneer. She said, call Mo Qing over and let him find some people to go to Lu province to pick someone up for me. In the Lu province, there was not only Chang Ziqing. Naturally there was also Zhang Ziqing's husband and son. In the previous lifetime, Zhang Ziqing had ruined Luo Shuiyan and lived for a long time without any worries before she was exposed. Now this old foundation was exposed by herself. It was necessary to add some jokes to the farce of the third branch. When Shin Miao was thinking about the third household of the Shin family, Shin Wan remained in the residence of Prince Ding. Shin Wan was a smart person in the turmoil of the princes fighting for the throne, but he was always unsure of his own footsteps. The crown prince was legitimate but sick and weak. Prince Zhou had his consort mother and was favored but was arrogant. Prince Li had a wide network of connections but was not favored by Emperor Wen Hui. Only Prince Ding formed his own faction but did not seem to be interested in the throne. But Shin Wan had an intuition that Fu Xiu-yi was not as uninterested in the emperor's position as he appeared on the surface. This made Shin Wan even more hesitant, but now that the Shin residents had met with misfortune after Shin Xian's return, even Shin Wan himself felt that it was somewhat unlucky. His official career was getting more and more difficult and one feared that no one would want to stand in the other prince's team. At this time, he thought of Fu Xiu-yi. In the early years when Shin Xian had not separated from the family, Fu Xiu-yi actually treated Shin Wan well and even had the intention to rope him in. Of course Shin Wan understood that Fu Xiu-yi was aiming for Shin Xian's military power, but at that time he had more leeway to choose, thus he delayed and played Tai Chi. Afterwards Fu Xiu-yi seemed to understand his intention and was not as warm as he was at the beginning. Now that the Shin family was in decline and was not like before, if Shin Wan still wanted to keep his official career and walk down a prosperous path, adding that Zhang Ziqing might be able to give birth to a son for him, Shin Wan's original, neutral, path instantly changed to wanting to break through. Great wealth came with great danger. He still wanted to give it a try. So when Shin Wan finally came to the residence of Prince Ding, he finally chose to defect. Shen Wan himself also felt that it was somewhat funny. If he had made this decision earlier, perhaps Shen Yu would not need to marry into the Wang family, exchange of marriage and escape. Shen Yu could still win over Fu Xiuyi's heart. But if Shen Yu did not exchange of marriage, perhaps he and Chen Roqiu would not have come to this step, Zhang Ziqing would not be pregnant and he would not seek refuge with Prince Ding. The world's affairs were a freak combination of factors and fate loved to play tricks on people. Fu Xiuyi sat on the main seat and ordered people to serve tea to Shen Wan. There was no need to say any polite words as both parties were well aware of the purpose of the visit. Fu Xiuyi smiled warmly. Shen Darren is busy with family matters today and suddenly visit. What is the matter? Chapter 646. Shen Wan's face was filled with shame. Now the matter between him and Chen Roqiu had caused the entire court to be in an uproar and the colleagues looked at him with an expression of watching a joke. This was a painful torment for Shen Wan who cherished his reputation. Shen Wan said, "This official is willing to sacrifice my life for your highness." When Fu Xiuyi heard it, he only smiled and did not answer. One did not know if he believed Shen Wan's words or not. There were only the two of them and the servants in the entire hall. This kind of silence gradually made the atmosphere tense up. Cold sweat started to form on Shen Wan's forehead. One did not know how long this kind of silence lasted until Shen Wan felt that his entire body was drenched in sweat before he heard Fu Xiuyi's voice from above, "But now that Shen Xian had already left the residence, what about you?" Shen Wan's heart thumped. Fu Xiuyi was indeed targeting Shen Xian. Originally when the second household had not declined, Shen Wan had guessed that Shen Yuan was working for Fu Xiuyi. It was just that what could Fu Xiuyi make Shen Yuan do? Shen Yuan was taken in by Fu Xiuyi at a young age and it was not enough just because of his talent. Afterwards Shen Wan thought clearly that it was most likely that Shen Yuan monitored Shen Xian or that he did something in Shen Xian's daily affairs. But afterwards Shen Yuan died and Fu Xiuyi thought that he was lacking a person like Shen Yuan. Afterwards Shen Xian simply went to the Shaochun city, thus this person was not needed. Who knew that 2 years later Shen Xian would return to the capital with a strength that one could not ignore and would inevitably become a dazzling existence in Fu Xiuyi's eyes. Shen Wan carefully said, "Even though he has left the residence, there is still 1 or 2 brotherly sentiments. If your highness has any instructions, this official will definitely do his best." "Good." Fu Xiuyi said, "This prince appreciates talented people and also believe in Shen Darren's ability. Coincidentally there is a matter recently and since Shen Darren is coincidentally here today, one will not bother others. Since it is one's own people, one believe that Shen Darren will handle it well." Shen Wan was somewhat uneasy. Fu Xiuyi's words were clearly to give him a difficult problem. If it was done well, he would naturally be Fu Xiuyi's people, but if it was not done well, he would not be able to prove that he was a talented person and would be ruthlessly abandoned by Fu Xiuyi. And because of the consequences of this difficult problem, Shen Wan must bear it himself. It was a deal. Shen Wan steeled his heart and said, "Your Highness, please instruct me." Fu Xiuyi looked at him with satisfaction. "This matter is not difficult. This prince knows that General Shen has a daughter, 5th Shen young lady, whom he loves like jewels and now 5th Shen young lady has reached the age of engagement." Shen Wan abruptly raised his head. Originally when Shen Miao was chasing after Fu Xiuyi shouting that she wanted to marry Fu Xiuyi did not even look at Shen Miao. Occasionally, when he talked about it with the other princes and courtiers, he would look extremely annoyed. After all, being liked by such an idiot and stupid person was no different from a humiliation to a prince. But now, Shen Wan's heart was pounding. Shen Miao had become more beautiful and her temperament had gradually calmed down. She had shed the original idiotic look and could be said to be a very good noble female in the Ding capital. If Fu Xiuyi wanted to marry Shen Miao, with the enmity between the first and third household of the Shen family, once Shen Miao gained power, she would definitely suppress him. Be it public or private, the better off Shen Miao was, the better off the first household of the Shen family, and the more dangerous it was for Shen Wan. He did not want Shen Miao to walk higher and higher and hoped that Shen Miao would be as cheap as dust. Shen Wan endured the bitterness in his heart and said, "Your Highness. Want to marry fifth lady? This prince?" Fu Xiuyi laughed as if he had heard a funny joke. He shook his head and said, "Not this prince. It is this prince's imperial older brother." Chapter 647. Shen Wan was startled. Fu Xiuyi's voice slowly spread to his ears. "Let fifth Shen young lady marry this prince's fourth older brother, Prince Zhou." Shen Wan was surprised at first, but when he thought about it and understood, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. What kind of person was Shen Miao? She was Shen Xian's daughter. The southern Xia and northern Shen, the Xia family was considered to have really declined, and the Shen family of Ming Qi was the strongest. Whoever married Shen Miao, that person would have the military power of Ming Qi. Shen Miao's identity was destined that she would not be able to marry the powerful dignitaries, and this would make the suspicious Emperor Wen Hui even more fearful. It was best for Shen Miao to marry a commoner, but at the very least she could not marry a military official. Most likely it was because of this that Shen Miao had not decided on a marriage even at her current age, because if she were to marry a commoner, Shen Xian would definitely feel that his daughter would be wronged. The dignitaries were like this, so the princes would not dare to have any ideas on Shen Miao. It was still better for the crown prince as he was the legitimate heir, but if any of the other princes were to marry Shen Miao, it would be a clear statement of their ambition to fight for the throne. This kind of heavy weight looked like a blessing, but in fact it was a disaster. At the moment in the fight for the throne, the one in the limelight was actually Prince Zhou's faction. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing's consort mother were favored and they had some abilities. Seeing that the power was getting bigger and more followers, if Shen Miao was involved, then Prince Zhou would be pushed to the teeth of the wind and waves. Emperor Wen Hui would definitely be unhappy and the rest of the princes would be jealous. One fear that Prince Zhou would be suppressed miserably. As for the Shen family, there was no need to talk about it. With such a big fanfare, one feared that once the Qin country and the great Liang people leave, the Shen family would die miserably. Killing two birds with one stone, it was done to the point of perfection. Shen Wan's heart suddenly felt timid towards Fu Xiuyi. This person's mind was too deep and too ruthless, which was somewhat scary. Fu Xiuyi did not seem to see Shen Wan's expression and smiled gently. "This matter will be handed over to Shendaran." He did not say how to do it and did not say to what extent. Prince Zhou already had a Zhou Wangfei, so if Shen Miao were to marry over, she could only be a Sufei. Shen Wan did not have any confidence in his heart, but it was not good to show it. He cupped his hands towards Fu Xiuyi and said, "This official will do my best." Fu Xiuyi's attitude was neither warm nor cold. If it was 2 years ago, Fu Xiuyi's attitude towards Shen Wan would be better, but the present was different from the past. The Shen family was not as good as before and Shen Wan's head was full of lawsuits, so Fu Xiuyi naturally did not need to value him as much as before. After Shen Wan left the residence of Prince Ding, Pei Lang then walked out from behind the screen. Pei Lang walked to the seat below Fu Xiuyi and looked at the teacup that Shen Wan left behind after drinking the tea. "Your Highness plans to use Shen Wan." Fu Xiuyi looked at Pei Lang. "What does gentleman think of Shen Wan?" Pei Lang shook his head. "Although he has his ways of enduring, he is not ruthless enough. His family is in a mess. If you were to use him, he would inevitably cause trouble in the future. He can be used in small ways, but not in big ways." Fu Xiuyi laughed and looked at Pei Lang with eyes full of appreciation. "Gentlemen and I have the same thoughts." Finishing, he sighed again. "Ever since the Xia brothers died, it is not easy to pass some things to others to do. If the Xia brothers had been raised properly, they would have been useful children, but now they have been completely destroyed. Even though they are not important pawns, they still added trouble. Pei Lang frowned. Your Highness does not intend to put Xinwan in an important position. Grass on the wall. Fu Xiuyi's smile was somewhat superficial. In the past he was wavering, but now the situation forced him to seek refuge with me. I do not dare to use this kind of person with an uncertain mind. One only need him to do some small things. Pei Lang said again, let Xinwan think of ways to matchmake the fourth prince and Xin Miao. Does your Highness think it is feasible? Chapter 648. One do not know if it is feasible or not. It is just that since this matter is Xinwan's only chance, he would definitely make it happen at all costs. The Xin family's skills are high and Prince Zhou is the strongest. Now that it has reached a sufficient stage, if one does not take action, one fear that it would really be too late. Pei Lang no longer spoke. But he saw Fu Xiuyi suddenly said, if I were to marry Xin Miao, what does teacher think? Pei Lang's heart jumped fiercely, but his face still had a light and breezy look as he analyzed, one fear that it would not be good and would attract His Majesty's suspicions and also make the rest of the princes fearful. Fu Xiuyi nodded his head and there was some regret in his expression. One could not tell what kind of tone it was in his words, it is a pity. Pei Lang did not understand what Fu Xiuyi was feeling pity about. In terms of feelings, Fu Xiuyi did not seem to have any other feelings for Xin Miao. If there was, he would not be so cold when Xin Miao chased him to the point that the entire Ding capital knew about it. If at that time Fu Xiuyi had any methods of shielding Xin Miao, then the rumors would not be so unscrupulous. What exactly was Fu Xiuyi feeling pity about? Pity that the Xin family's military power was not fated to be in his hands? Pei Lang did not know what the answer was. After Fu Xiuyi left, he also returned to his own room, and when he saw that there was no one else, he then started to write a letter. Tonight the residence of Prince Rui was somewhat austere. The servants all had a dignified expression and did not dare to breathe loudly. Today when His Highness Prince Rui returned, his expression was very cold, and Gao Yang and Ji Yu Shu who were beside him also had a rare solemn expression. Tai Yi and Nan Qi brought along a person dressed like a guard and entered the room with Prince Rui. Even the personal study was renovated to be very spacious, and with the addition of some magnificent furnishings, it did not look like a study but had the feeling of a corner of a palace. There was a person sitting on the main seat and was playing with the thumb ring in his hands in boredom. He was wearing a dark purple embroidered robe, and the clothes slowly covered the spacious chair, as if a purple cloud was flowing down from the sky. The person who was kneeling on the ground was prostrating himself. He could only see the boots in front of him. It was a greenish-black deerskin boot with the neatest sewing. The fine and dense sewing did not move at all. The sewing seemed to have silver edges. It was just a boot, but it was enough to show the owner's arrogant and luxurious temperament. Xie Jingxing had one leg on the soft couch and was half leaning on the seat as he looked down at the person below. His eyebrows and eyes were unbelievably handsome. When he smiled, it was as if the entire garden of spring could not be blocked. However, when his face was cold, it made people shiver. Those beautiful peach blossom eyes seemed to have turned into an icy spring at the peak of a mountain in an instant. He opened his mouth faintly, and his voice was emotionless. Tell me, who is your master? The man gritted his teeth and said nothing. Gao Yang and Ji Yu Shu also frowned tightly. Xie Jingxing smiled lazily and said, it is fine if you do not want to say. Throw him into the tower prison. He suddenly bent down and got closer to that guard and said softly, anyway I know who it is. The guard's expression did not change. His body was riddled with scars. It was obvious that he had suffered a lot of torture before this. Xie Jingxing smiled slightly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He said, take his token. Ji Yu Shu and Gao Yang were startled at the same time and could not help but look at that guard. The guard was startled for a moment before a trace of struggle flashed on his face. Just the word token, it was obvious that Xie Jingxing already knew his identity. Everyone knew that Prince Rui of the Great Liang was ruthless and unscrupulous in his actions, and the tower prison was an existence that made one tremble in fear. Even he would tremble in his heart. The guard steeled his heart and simply knelt down and kowtowed a few times to Xie Jingxing, "Your Highness, have mercy." Chapter 649. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at the other person and sneered, "The people that Imperial older brother sent are just like this." His tone had a deep sense of ridicule. One thought that their bones would be hard. Boring. Ji Yushu could not help but speak. "What does His Majesty want you to do to 5th Shen young lady?" This person was caught at the entrance of the Shen mansion. It was also fortunate that Xie Jingxing had sent his own people to keep a close watch on the Shen mansion to prevent any accidents from happening. This person's martial arts were extremely high and he was also quite vigilant, so Xie Jingxing's people had to wait for a few days before catching him. Now that he thought about it, it was not strange. After all, he was a spy by Emperor Yongli's side. If he did not even have this ability, then the Great Liang imperial family would be in danger. That guard originally wanted to say something, but when he met Xie Jingxing's smiling yet not smiling gaze, he could not help but feel a chill down his spine. One had to know that in the entire imperial family of the Liang dynasty, this lazy and handsome Prince Rui, who always had a casual smile on his face, was the one that should not be provoked. 2 years ago, when he returned to the Great Liang, there were many forces in the imperial court that were secretly playing with each other, but they were all settled by Xie Yuan. Those ministers that were against him were also uprooted and not even their roots were left. His methods were ruthless and his schemes were deep, but the way he did things made it impossible for others to find fault with him. However, other than fighting in the court, he had also done a number of beautiful things, leaving those conservative old ministers speechless. This was the reason why people loved and hated him. Now under his sharp eyes that could see through everything, the guard did not dare to hide anymore and could only reveal everything. His Majesty knew about 5th Shen young lady's matter and feared that Your Highness was staying in Mingqi because of 5th Shen young lady, so he sent this subordinate to investigate. This subordinate did not want this subordinate to harm 5th Shen young lady, it was all to investigate. Gao Yang's and Ji Yushu's expressions were not good at the same time. Even though Emperor Yongle was in the Great Liang, it did not mean that there were no spies in Mingqi's Ding capital. It was hard to say what would happen after discovering the relationship between Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing. But with Emperor Yongli's personality, he would never allow anything outside of his plan to happen. Shen Miao was after all a Mingqi's person, and this identity would bring about many variables. From Ji Yushu and Gao Yang's point of view, it was not certain that Emperor Yongle would agree with Xie Jingxing's thoughts. However, the most troublesome thing was that these two brothers were equally stubborn. Once they decided on something, they would never change their minds. If Emperor Yongle were to obstruct him, how would Xie Jingxing obediently give in? In addition, as compared to Emperor Yongle, Xie Jingxing had experienced quite a number of assassinations in Mingqi and his temperament was even more unruly. If both brothers were to really fight, one feared that there would be a reign of terror and the sky would turn dark. Sure enough, when Xie Jingxing heard this, he laughed and said, "Oh. Since it is only to investigate, then there is no need to lock you in the tower prison. I will send you back to the Great Liang." The guard was slightly startled, and before he could speak, Xie Jingxing's voice was heard from above, "You know what to say." The guard hesitated for a moment. Prince Rui and Emperor Yongle were equally terrifying existences, and his heart was in despair as he probed, "Does Your Highness and 5th Shen young lady have any relation?" Xie Jingxing looked at him with interest and his beautiful eyes seemed to have some deep meaning. He slowly said, "How can imperial older brother's people lie?" Gao Yang gripped the fan in his hands tightly and Ji Yushu swallowed his saliva. "Go back and tell imperial older brother that he is right. This prince stayed behind because of Shen Miao." The youth's lips hooked up into a gentle smile, but his brows were unyielding as he lightly said, "Do not have delusions of changing anything because this prince does not allow it. Oh right, remember to remind imperial older brother." He yawned, "Do not forget the agreement with this prince." The tranquil night covered up everything. It covered up the undercurrents in the residence of Prince Rui, covered up the schemes in Prince Ding's residence, and also covered up the whispers in the general residence. Qiu Shui Yuan had already been taken over by someone, and the original mistress returned to her maiden family in a fit of anger and even fought a lawsuit with her husband's family. With this kind of incompatible fire and water, everyone knew that Chen Roqiu would not be able to have her former glory. And this new Yin Yang had gentle and magnanimous brows and even had a child in her tummy. In the future, one feared that she would ascend to heaven. There were not a few servants who stepped on the low and flattered the high, so they immediately turned around to flatter this new master. Chang Ziqing sat in the room and touched her tummy with a gentle smile hanging on her face. The western courtyard was after all too far away and was somewhat deserted. Old Shenfuren found someone to calculate and found out that the child in Chang Ziqing's tummy was a son. She immediately provided for Chang Ziqing, and Xinwan even brought Chang Ziqing to Qiu Shui Yuan so that it would be convenient to take care of her. Chang Ziqing was already the new female mistress of Qiu Shui Yuan, and she was also very satisfied with the current situation. Even though Chen Roqiu's skills were deep, she was after all old and did not give birth to a son, thus she was at a disadvantage in this battle. Xinwan entered the room and put down the tonic in his hands before walking over to Chang Ziqing's side and touched her tummy before smiling, "Very good." Chang Ziqing responded with a smile but was suddenly startled before saying softly, "Is there something troubling, master?" Xinwan was startled for a moment before smiling bitterly, "There is really a troublesome matter." Chapter 650. "There is indeed something troubling me," Xinwan answered with a bitter smile. Sang Ziqing patted Xinwan's hands and smiled, "If master has any troubles, there is no harm in telling me about it. Perhaps I might be able to help." Xinwan looked at Chang Ziqing's stomach. Even though he could not see anything at the moment, he still said, "Never mind. It is the proper matter for you to recuperate your body in the residence. There's no need to pay attention to these complicated and trifling matters. Moreover, they're all matters of the imperial court." Sang Ziqing was not discouraged and smiled. "Originally, before entering the door, master treated me as a confidant and would always tell me about troubles. Whether it was the trifling matters of the inner court or the affairs of the court, they had never been as distant as they were now. Why are you not as good as you used to be now that you've entered the sect?" She shook her head and said, "I don't only know how to sew clothes and pick flowers in the backyard. Although I'm not the smartest, it's much easier for two people to think of a way than one person. Why don't you tell me about it?" Her gentle words struck a chord in Xinwan's heart. Chang Ziqing was different from Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu was a real, pampered wife, and even though she was gentle and graceful in the past, she would never intervene in Xinwan's career. When Xinwan's career was at its peak, it was good to have such a lovely wife who abided by her duties. But if there were any problems, Chen Roqiu would not be able to help at all in the officialdom. Sang Ziqing was different. Before Xinwan had revealed his thoughts to Sang Ziqing, he called Sang Ziqing as a friend. The two of them talked about everything under the sky. Sang Ziqing's knowledge was not short and could occasionally point out the matters of the court, thus Xinwan appreciated her a lot. At this moment, hearing Chang Ziqing say that, Xinwan's heart suddenly moved slightly. Chang Ziqing not only had her own views on the matters of the court, the most important thing was that Chang Ziqing was a female. There were too many twists and turns in how to let Xin Miao marry Prince Zhou. If it was 2 years ago when Xin Miao's temperament had not changed, it would naturally be very easy. As long as he said a few words in front of Xin Miao, he would be able to incite her, but now it was not possible. Moreover, the relationship with the first household was tense, so it was impossible to start from Xin Xian's side. For this kind of marriage, perhaps one would only be able to obtain some gains by asking Sang Ziqing. Thinking of this, Xinwan looked at Sang Ziqing and asked probingly, "If one say that I want Fifth Lady to marry His Highness Prince of Zhou, what do you think should be done?" "His Highness Prince Zhou?" Chang Ziqing was surprised for a moment before asking curiously, why let fifth young lady marry to Prince Zhou? Shen Wan chuckled, I just said that casually. Even though he had already treated Chang Ziqing as his woman, but since he was working for Prince Ding, his mouth must be tight, thus he did not dare to casually reveal this confidential matter. Even if he did not say it, Chang Ziqing was a smart person and quickly understood. She did not linger on the matter and said, fifth Shen young lady is General Shen's beloved daughter and one that he pampers in his palms. Now that His Highness Prince of Zhou already has a Wangfei, if fifth Shen young lady were to marry over, at most she would be a Sufei. General Shen and Shen Furen would definitely not agree to it. Shen Wan furrowed his brows and nodded. His expression showed that he was in a dilemma. When Chang Ziqing saw it, her heart moved slightly. If Shen Miao married to Prince Zhou, no matter what, it would not be a good thing for Shen Miao to be a Sufei. Even though Chang Ziqing did not understand what Shen Wan's intention was, she was certain that once this matter was successful, Shen Miao would not have a good ending. Thinking of that delicate and pretty young female's pair of clear eyes that seemed to be able to see through one's heart, Chang Ziqing's heart felt somewhat uneasy. One did not know why, but Chang Ziqing had an instinctive fear and uneasiness towards Shen Miao, as if Shen Miao's existence would cause her some unpredictable consequences. Chang Ziqing was also a person who sought stability, thus if Shen Miao could be settled, it might not be a bad thing for her. Chapter 651. Especially. She looked at her lower abdomen. Now that there was a child in her abdomen, the position of the matriarch of the third household of the Shen family was set in stone. Not only must it be set in stone, it must be done well, thus any person or thing that could be a threat should be removed. But it is not that there is no way at all. Chang Ziqing smiled sweetly. Shen Wan's eyes brightened as he asked, what methods do you have? That would depend on what kind of attitude Master wants Prince Zhou to have. Chang Ziqing asked, does Prince Zhou want to marry or not? Shen Wan's heart moved. Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing to have this marriage, as the Prince of Mingqi was not a fool. If he were to marry Shen Miao now, it would undoubtedly be setting up a target for himself. Prince Zhou was not willing to have a relationship with Shen Miao, but Fu Xiuyi's aim was to make it seem that Prince Zhou wanted to have this marriage with Shen Miao. He said, Prince Zhou would definitely not be willing, but one must let others think that Prince Zhou is willing. Chang Ziqing thought about it and said, this is somewhat difficult. But females have always cherished their reputation, and if one's reputation was ruined, one would not have anything to rely on for the rest of one's life. I think that if Master wants to be the matchmaker, there is no harm in starting from fifth young lady. Shen Wan saw Chang Ziqing's confident look and asked, there is no harm in speaking. Shen Furen and General Shen are not willing for fifth young lady to be a side consort. In this world, there is no worst and only worse. If there is a worse ending than fifth young lady being a side consort, General Shen and Shen Furen would definitely take a step back and choose to let fifth young lady marry Prince Zhou. Shen Wan's heart moved. He heard Chang Ziqing continuing to speak, as for something worse than being a side consort, there are many. For example, being kidnapped by bandits, being tainted by hooligans, or not knowing who the adulterer is. Under this kind of suppression, one would suddenly get a piece of news. That person might be Prince Zhou. No matter if it is Prince Zhou or not, General Shen and Shen Furen would choose Prince Zhou because this is the best one and also the one that can protect fifth Shen young lady. Chang Ziqing did not say it very clearly, but smart people would only say 70 to 80%. In a blink of an eye, Shen Wan understood 70 to 80% and felt that everything was clear in front. Chang Ziqing smiled as she touched her lower abdomen and smiled gently, it is just that these are all sinister methods. If one did not see Master frowning, I would not have said these words. Shen Wan had obtained this wonderful plan, so how would he feel that Chang Ziqing's method was sinister? At the moment he felt that he had picked up a treasure. Sang Zaiqing was able to get a son in one stroke and was smart enough to solve his current problem. He immediately kissed Chang Zaiqing's cheek and said with a smile, "With such a beauty, how would I dare to frown?" After saying that, he stood up again, as if he couldn't wait to do something, and said, "I still have some matters to attend to, I'll come see you later." Sang Zaiqing naturally complied gently. After Shenwan left, Zhao Mama, who was by Chang Zaiqing's side, walked over and said with some worry, "Third master is going to deal with fifth Shen young lady?" "Perhaps." Sang Zaiqing smiled. It is not the first time that the first and third household of the Shen family are at odds. "Miss, are you planning to help third master deal with fifth miss?" Zhao Mama asked. "There is still General Shen above fifth young lady. Will anything happen to miss doing this? This matter was not done by me, so how can it be counted on me?" Sang Zaiqing's smile did not change. As long as Shen Wan is not a fool, he would not be easily caught by others. Moreover, if something really happened, the Shen family would be busy dealing with Shen Miao's rumors, so how would they have the mind to care about other things? Zhao Mama was still not assured. Why would young lady help third master deal with fifth young lady? Chapter 652. To come up with strategies for one's husband is what a proper matriarch should do. One must let him feel that I am different from Chen Roqiu. Let him feel that I am able to do the things that Chen Roqiu is able to do and that I am able to do the things that Chen Roqiu is unable to do, then he would not be able to leave me. Sang Zaiqing caressed her lower abdomen and narrowed her eyes. Moreover, I have a premonition that if one does not remove Shen Miao, one fear that it would bring about a big disaster. When Zhao Mama heard this, she jumped in shock and did not say anything more. Sang Zaiqing changed the topic of conversation. "Speaking of which, is there any news from the Lu province?" Zhao Mama said, "The people that were sent are on the way, and no matter how fast they travel, they would still need a few days, so they should be back in a few days. Let them arrange things properly." A trace of coldness flashed in Sang Zaiqing's eyes. "My past cannot be known to anyone." Shen Miao received a letter from Pei Lang that night. In the letter, it said that Fu Xiuyi actually let Shen Wan think of ways to let her marry Prince Shou. Jing Zhe and Gu Yu saw that Shen Miao's expression was not good and thought that something happened, so they asked, "Did young lady encounter something bad?" Shen Miao shook her head, but her heart was secretly vigilant. In the past and present lifetime, Fu Xiuyi had the same calculations. No matter if she could marry Prince Zhou or not, as long as she was involved with Prince Zhou, the Shen family and Prince Zhou would not have a good time. The Shen family had angered Emperor Wenhui and made Emperor Wenhui feel that the Shen family supported Prince Zhou and wanted to secretly take a side in the fight for the heir apparent. As for Prince Zhou, he was the target of public criticism. Without using a single soldier, he was able to remove two potential dangers for Fu Xiuyi. Fu Xiuyi really had a good calculation. As for her rather capable third Shu, he wanted to tie her and Prince Zhou together. Needless to say, he would definitely use some methods that could not be seen in public. As Shen Miao thought about it, she could not help but sneer in her heart. No matter how long it was, the third household of the Shen family could use the first household's people without any scruples. If it was possible to use the entire first household as a stepping stone for glory and wealth. Such intentions were to be put to death. She said, "Let Mo Qing come in." Jing Zhe went outside to call Mo Qing over. Shen Miao asked Mo Qing, "Have you found the person that I asked you to investigate in the Lu province?" Mo Qing cupped his hands and said, replying to young lady, "The Lu province's people had already replied and seemed to have found the person. However, there is another group of people who are also trying to find out the whereabouts of the father and son. I heard that they have issued a Jianghu order, regardless of whether they are dead or alive." Shen Miao suddenly laughed out, but no matter how one looked at that smile, there was some coldness in it. Chang Zaiqing is really ruthless. Regardless of life or death, the people that Shen Miao asked Mo Qing to find were Chang Ziqing's husband and son, and now other than Chang Ziqing, who else would be chasing after that pair of father and son? Now that Zhang Ziqing had clung on to Shen Gui, she even wanted to kill her own husband and son to prevent future troubles. It was no wonder that she could walk so far in the previous lifetime. Just this kind of ruthlessness was something that many people could not compare to. Send someone to inform the people in the Lu province to protect them father and son and bring them back to the Ding capital as soon as possible. Shen Miao said. Mo Qing nodded his head. Shen Miao suddenly thought of something and said, "Wait." She said, "Help me bring a letter to Manager Ji of Feng Xian Pawn Shop." The lawsuit between the Shen and Chen family was really long and lingering. Many people thought that the case had been settled for a long time, but upon asking, it was not over yet. Almost 2 whole months had passed before this case came to an end. Chen Roqiu was indeed jealous of having no son, and in addition to old Shen Furen saying that Chen Roqiu did not treat her with respect, at the end Shen Wan still gave Chen Roqiu a divorce letter. This marriage that was initially praised by everyone as a talented man and beautiful woman, a celestial couple that others envied, actually ended in such a farce. And the most ruthless thing about Shen Wan was that after divorcing Chen Roqiu, he quickly promoted Chang Ziqing as a noble concubine. Chapter 653. But even so, this lawsuit was a lose-lose situation for both parties. Shen Wan's career was hindered and the residents also spent a lot of money. It was just that in comparison, the Qin family was obviously more miserable. The Qin family had some reputation, but because they were a scholarly family, they did not have much money. Old Master Qin initially fought this lawsuit because he did not want others to look down on the Qin family, but he did not expect that this lawsuit would go on for so long. After fighting for a full 2 months, it was not an exaggeration to say that the Qin family was bankrupt. Because of this, old Master Chen's vitality was greatly damaged and blamed everything on Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu's mother also had some complaints. Chen Roqiu was originally hurt by Shen Wan and hated that Shen Wan did not care about old feelings and was also angry that Chang Ziqing was two-faced. The saddest thing was that there was still no news of Shen Yu, and now that she was despised by her own parents, she felt that all her hopes were in tatters and was almost at the end of despair. What she did not know was that the daughter that she could not find was currently in the residence of the Qin Prince in Yanqing Lane. In the residence of the Qin Prince, Shen Yu was dressing up in front of a mirror. The clothes that she wore were of the best quality. Even though the Shen family was a wealthy official family, it could not be compared to the fabrics in the Qin country's imperial palace. The jewelry that she wore was also very luxurious. She was covered in silk and looked like a different person from the past. If one were to say that the Shen Yu in the past followed Chen Roqiu's instructions and dressed up elegantly and was not bothered by the vulgar gold and silver, now her appearance looked much more expensive. Naturally it was because Shen Yu had become Huangfu Hao's concubine. The maid by her side carefully served hot tea to Shen Yu, but Shen Yu's expression was somewhat impatient. She had a pretty face, and under Chen Roqiu's daily nurturing, she could be said to be gentle and understanding. Moreover, she could see that Huangfu Hao had some interest in Shen Yu, so she picked out topics related to Shen Yu. One day, Huangfu Hao frivolously asked her if she was willing to be his concubine. Shen Yu thought for a night and agreed the next day. She did not have any other way out. The news spread like wildfire. The lawsuit between the Shen family and the Qin family had almost become a joke. Zhang Ziqing was pregnant, and if she gave birth to a son, one feared that this daughter would be thrown to the back of the Shen family's head. Even if it was not a son, because Chen Roqiu caused Shen Wan to be pointed at, Shen Wan and old Shen Furen would hate her. Her name had already been occupied by Shen Dongling, and these days there were rumors that the Minister of Lands Wang Bai doted on his lovely wife, Shen Yu. The more it was said, the more Shen Yu's heart was filled with regret and unwillingness. No matter if she really liked Wang Bai or not, as long as she thought that the comfortable life that Shen Dongling was living now should have been hers, Shen Yu's heart was extremely unreconciled. She hated Shen Wan for being heartless and also hated Chen Roqiu for not living up to expectations. And now she understood that based on her current self, it was even more impossible to get close to Fu Xiu-yi. If she were to return to the Shen family, Shen Wan might be angry with Chen Roqiu and arrange a shoddy marriage for her. Shen Yu also had the unique coldness of the Shen family in her bones. Shen Wan and her had been father and daughter for so many years, and at the beginning they were happy and affectionate, but now, Shen Yu's gaze towards Shen Wan was even more vigilant than outsiders. Shen Yu thought that rather than being married to an unknown family, it was better to be Huang Fu Hao's concubine. Huang Fu Hao was handsome and young and was also the crown prince of the Qin country. If in the future she was favored by Huang Fu Hao, perhaps she could be promoted. The most important thing was that if she could borrow Huang Fu Hao's power, perhaps she could protect herself and Chen Roqiu. Thus Shen Yu became Huang Fu Hao's concubine. Chapter 654. In all fairness, Huang Fu Hao treated Shen Yu well, and naturally Shen Yu deliberately fawned on him. But currently in Mingqi, Shen Yu was the most favored one among all the concubines that Huang Fu Hao brought. Perhaps Huang Fu Hao also enjoyed the taste of a daughter of an official being his concubine and was very greedy for novelty. Shen Yu asked the servant beside her, "Has the letter for the Chen family been delivered?" The servant said, "It is already on the way and should be arriving soon." Shen Yu unhappily drank a mouthful of tea. Chen Roqiu received a letter. She did not know who sent this letter to her room. The Chen family's master and Furen did not want to see Chen Roqiu, as Chen Roqiu had hurt the Chen family's strength and the public money had decreased by a lot. Older brother and sister-in-law saw her as a troublemaker, thus Chen Roqiu's days were not good and she simply stayed in the room all day and did not go out. She looked around but didn't see anyone. Curious, she opened the envelope and a letter fell out. As soon as she opened the letter, she was stunned at first sight. The handwriting on the letter was very clear to Chen Roqiu as it was Shen Yu's handwriting. Shen Yu's calligraphy was the only copy of the calligraphy master Wang Furen that Chen Roqiu had specially found for her. Shen Yu's strength was soft and she was able to learn most of Wang Furen's handwriting, but she did not have enough strength, so Chen Roqiu could tell with one glance that it was Shen Yu's handwriting. She quickly sized up the surroundings, and when she saw that there was no one else in the room, she then boldly opened it. The top only said to meet her at a somewhat isolated inn in the eastern part of the city, and there was no signature, but Chen Roqiu understood in her heart that it was Shen Yu who secretly arranged to meet her. The stone in Chen Roqiu's heart was put down. Shen Yu could still write a letter to her, and looking at the unhurried handwriting, it was obvious that she was still safe. The original worries were swept away and Chen Roqiu slowly calmed down. These days the blows came one after another and it made her somewhat flustered and unable to socialize and felt that life was hopeless. But Shen Yu's letter seemed to light up her hope. With a daughter, Chen Roqiu's heart was suddenly filled with fighting spirit. At least she was not alone, so why could a person like Chang Ziqing enter the room and snatch what belonged to her? Chang Ziqing wanted to give birth to a son for Shen Wan. She wanted to see if Chang Ziqing had this ability. With a backbone, Chen Roqiu gradually calmed down. In the following day, the servants around discovered that the haggard and irritable Chang Ziqing seemed to be in a better mood, as if she had returned to the gentle and graceful third Shen Furen of the past. Even when the servants collided with her, Chen Roqiu only laughed it off. If an astute person were to look, they would discover that in Chen Roqiu's eyes, there seemed to be a renewed fighting spirit that could not be extinguished. Early in the morning the next day, Chen Roqiu went out. No one from the Chen family stopped her. Madame Chen was a little worried, but she didn't say anything after old Master Chen glared at her. Chen Roqiu's older brother and sister-in-law were even more dismissive. If it was in the past, Chen Roqiu would quarrel with the few sister-in-law, but today she was not in the mood. She was wearing an unassuming brown short skirt. The skirt was of an old style from a few years ago, worn by Madame Chen when she was young. When she came out from the Shin residence, she was not able to get a single cent of silver, and because she was in a fit of pique, she only took the jewelry and did not even bring much clothes out. Afterwards she was busy with the lawsuit and did not have the time to buy it. At the moment, the Chin family could not even afford to buy it. Wearing unfitting and outdated clothes, Chen Roqiu could only suppress the humiliation in her heart. She was wearing a bamboo hat and others could not see her appearance, but even if they were to see it, one feared that they would not be able to link this shabbily dressed and haggard-looking woman with the talented female that everyone in the Ding capital applauded. Chapter 655. In order to save money, Chen Roqiu could only hire an old horse carriage. When the horse carriage reached the east of the city, Chen Roqiu paid the money and quickly walked towards the inn that was mentioned in the letter. Upon entering the inn, Chen Roqiu looked around and did not see Shin Yu's figure. Just as she was feeling suspicious in her heart, a waiter walked towards her and glanced at her before asking, "Is Furen looking for a young lady?" Chen Roqiu was startled for a moment before nodding her head. Now that the entire Ding capital knew about the lawsuit between her and Shin Wan, she was somewhat guilty and feared that she would be recognized and pointed at. She was even more afraid that Shin Yu would be discovered. That waiter said, "Furen, please follow me." The waiter brought Chen Roqiu to a room on the upper floor of the inn and stopped at the door before smiling, "The person that Furen is waiting for is inside." Then he left by himself. Chen Roqiu pushed the door open and saw a young female sitting at the table in the room. No matter how Chen Roqiu recognized that back view, who else could it be other than Shin Yu? Chen Roqiu closed the door and cried out involuntarily, "Yuer." Shin Yu turned her head over and could not help but be startled when she saw Chen Roqiu's appearance. It was until Chen Roqiu went forward to hold her hands that Shin Yu could see Chen Roqiu's face clearly before calling out, "Mother." But then she frowned, "How did you become like this?" If one did not see it with one's own eyes, Shin Yu would not believe that this sloppily dressed and simple female would be her noble, gentle and generous mother. When Chen Roqiu heard it, a trace of resentment flashed across her face and she gritted her teeth, "If it was not for that slut Zai Qing and your heartless father, how would I end up like this?" Finishing, she looked at Shin Yu anxiously, "Where have you been these days? Do you know that mother's heart is very anxious? Are you all right? Did something happen?" Chen Roqiu only had Shin Yu as a daughter and normally she would be pampered and loved, so the concern at the moment was not fake. When Shin Yu heard it, she felt somewhat sad but her face was still smiling, "Mother, do not be afraid. I am living very well now. I have found a backer that is even nobler than Wang Qian. With this backer, the Shin family will not dare to bully us in the future." Chen Roqiu asked suspiciously, "Who are you talking about?" Shin Yu hesitated for a while before saying, "His Highness the Crown Prince of the Qin country." Chen Roqiu cried out in surprise, only to hear Shin Yu quickly continuing to explain, "His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well. At the beginning when I left the Shin family, it was His Highness the Crown Prince who saved me. After that, he wanted to send me back, but the Shin family was in trouble, so I stayed in the Crown Prince's residence. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince is a good person. Mother, don't feel bad about it. I'm really following His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. It's much better than following those people of the Wang clan who say one thing but mean another. I can't be on equal footing with Shin Dongling, right? If I return to the Shin family, grandmother and father are already dissatisfied with me. Who knows how they will betroth me? Mother, can you just listen to me this once?" Chen Roqiu instinctively felt that it was not good, but after hearing that Huang Fu Hao saved Shin Yu, her expression slightly eased. But at the end the other party was not a person of Ming Qi. Even if Chen Roqiu did not understand the affairs of the court, she had been influenced by Shin Wan for so many years and had a basic vigilance. He is after all a person of the Qin country, moreover he is the crown prince. Seeing that Chen Roqiu still did not agree, Shen Yu's heart hardened and simply lied. His Highness the Crown Prince said that in the future when he returns to the Qin country, he will bestow me with a new identity and let me become his Sufei. Is this true? Chen Roqiu was surprised for a moment. If Shen Yu were to leave Ming Qi and become the Sufei of the Crown Prince's residence in the Qin country, in the future she would be able to enjoy endless glory and splendor. After experiencing Shen Wan's matter, Chen Roqiu's current thinking was different from before. What was the use of feelings? Feelings were too illusory. When the flowers are in bloom and the moon is round, one would be intimate, but in the blink of an eye, one would be treated coldly. And those smelly silver, riches and splendor that were mentioned in the books were the things that one could really rely on. Without money, the Qin family could mock and ridicule this daughter of theirs. If their family had a Sufei of the Crown Prince. Chen Roqiu's heart slowly warmed up. Absolutely true. Shen Yu said. Chen Roqiu hesitated for a moment before saying, let this matter be discussed in the future. There is still one more matter at hand. Shen Yu asked, what matter? Chang Zaiqing, that slut, schemed against me behind my back, saying one thing in front of me and another behind my back. I fell into her trap. Now I have become a street rat, but the person I hate the most is not Chang Zaiqing but your father. If it was not for your father's protection, how would I end up like this? He did not even put the past decades of husband and wife relationship in his eyes and let them live a good life with a clear conscience. I am not reconciled. I hate. Chapter 656. I am not reconciled. I hate. Chen Roqiu's words were filled with deep hatred. Now her face was haggard, and when she said those words, her expression was so ferocious that even Shen Yu jumped in shock. Shen Yu said, Mother, what are you talking about? You have also seen the matter. Chen Roqiu gritted her teeth. Your father and I can be considered to have congenial feelings for each other and have seen everything for so many years. I treat him wholeheartedly and never thought that he would guard me and live alone, but he cannot find someone to humiliate me. Even if he chased me out, he would still go against the Chen family in court. Now that the Chen family's luck is badly damaged, the Chen family would look at me with all kinds of ridicule. It is your father and Chang Zaiqing that forced me to such a desperate situation. What is my reputation in the Ding capital? A hen that cannot lay eggs? A jealous woman? This is what your father is repaying me with. As Chen Roqiu spoke, she sneered and said, and that old fart, after marrying into the Chen family, she always pick on me. Isn't it because she herself is a third-rate female singer, so she cannot see others doing well? This time the matter between Chang Zaiqing and your father was also pushed by her behind the scenes. Those people in the Shen family are all not good things. Shen Yu could not help but frown as she felt that Chen Roqiu's words were like a shrew scolding the streets, but speaking of the Shen family, until now Shen Yu did not feel anything. Sure enough, following that, Chen Roqiu looked at her and said, in the beginning when your father wanted you to marry into the Wang family, I thought that you clearly liked someone else in your heart, but your father coaxed me and said that only the Wang family could protect you, so I could only agree. Who knows what kind of people the Wang family is? To actually not acknowledge you because of Shen Dongling, and now you do not even have your own identity. It is really too much of a bully. If your father had half a bit of consideration for the father-daughter relationship, one think that he would stand up for you, but look at what your father did. He actually wanted you to apologize to the Wang family and even want to be on equal footing with Shen Dongling. Why is it that you, the dignified young lady of the Shen family, have to be on equal footing with a Shu daughter? This is simply the biggest joke in the world. Does he even see you as his own daughter? Chen Roqiu's words were full of provocation. Currently Chen Roqiu had nothing and there was no one standing on her side. It was not easy to find a daughter and she feared that Shen Yu would be coaxed back by Shen Wan's few words, then she would really be alone. If Shen Yu was still with her, Chen Roqiu would at least have something to think about. When Xin Yu heard it, her expression sank. Speaking of which, it wasn't that there wasn't any father-daughter relationship between her and Xin Wan, but what she hated the most about the Xin family was that they had used her marriage as a raft, causing her to be unable to return home. It was said that it was for her own good, but Xin Yu had only suffered. Even though Huang Fu Hao treated her well, she was after all a concubine. A concubine. Even if it was the crown prince's concubine, it was still the lowest level of concubine and could be casually thrown away like a plaything. In addition to Chen Roqiu mentioning that there was someone else in her heart, thinking that there was no possibility at all with Fu Xiuyi, she sighed sadly, "Mother, don't talk about these useless things anymore. It is impossible for His Highness Prince Ding, and I have never thought about him in this lifetime. Most likely we are not fated to be together." She then smiled bitterly, "Moreover, His Highness the Crown Prince treats me very well and I also like him very much." Chen Roqiu understood her daughter the most, so how could she not see the disappointment in Xin Yu's heart? She was angry and distressed, and even hated Fu Xiuyi. Her own daughter was so good, so why could she not obtain the love of her heart? She took a deep breath and said, "The Xin family harmed us mother and daughter to this extent, so it must not be that simple. Do not worry, mother will definitely vent for us mother and daughter. Not a single person from the Xin family will be able to escape. Since I have been divorced and returned to my maiden family, there is no longer any relationship with the Xin family. Even if something happens to the Xin family, they will not be able to find it on my head. Now that you no longer have the identity of Xin Yu, you will definitely be safe." Chapter 657. Mother, what do you want to do? Xin Yu heard something wrong in Chen Roqiu's words and asked worriedly. Chen Roqiu sneered and replied, "Just wait and see. I came over just to inform you. Seeing that you are fine, mother will be at ease." Xin Yu could not ask anything from Chen Roqiu and could only give up helplessly, but she ignored the flash of ruthlessness in Chen Roqiu's eyes. After a few more days, the Ding capital seemed to have calmed down. Nothing new happened. It was just that it was almost the end of the year, and the people on the streets were getting busy. Naturally, everyone in the Xin mansion started to buy New Year's goods and Luo Tan was still very happy. It was just that ever since the last incident, Xin Xian did not allow both of them to go out easily. If they were to go out, they would definitely bring along a bunch of guards, which was somewhat boring. Moreover, Feng and Ning was also feeling guilty about the previous incident, and after apologizing, one did not know if it was because of once bitten by a snake, twice shy, that she did not ask both of them out anymore. Luo Tan was also very bored in the residence, and after that she was so bored that she followed Luo Ling and Xin Qiu to the training grounds to watch the soldiers train. She dressed up as a male, and with Xin Xian and Luo Ling by her side, there was no need to be afraid. Xin Miao, on the other hand, quietly stayed in the room. She did not like to be lively and did not like to go shopping. Staying alone was the most reassuring thing. On this day, Mo Qing came back from outside to say that Zhang Ziqing's husband and son had been brought to the Ding capital. Because they had to keep it a secret, they didn't dare to casually bring it into the mansion. Instead, they settled it in a private house in the east of the city. Xin Miao said, "You did very well." She remembered that in her previous lifetime, Zhang Ziqing's husband was a gambling addict and scoundrel. Because he was a drunkard, he was somewhat rough. If this kind of person were to be contaminated with the Xin mansion and have other thoughts in the future, he would be like a sticky candy, and it would take a lot of effort to clean him up. Moreover, who knew if there were people in the Xin residence monitoring the Xin mansion every day? If they were to see this father and son pair, one feared that there would be more trouble. Mo Qing repeatedly said that he did not dare and asked Xin Miao, "When does young lady plan to see them father and son?" For Xin Miao to bring both father and son to the Ding capital, there must be a use for it. Before that, he would definitely meet with the other party for a chat. Just as Shen Miao was about to answer, she suddenly thought of something and paused. In Pei Lang's letter, Fu Xiuyi gave Shen Wan a difficult problem, which was to marry himself to Prince Shou. What method did Shen Wanning use? Even though Shen Miao was not very clear, she could more or less guess that it was nothing more than some dirty tricks. Thus when one stepped out of the Shen mansion's door, there might be danger lurking everywhere outside. These days were calm and peaceful. Perhaps it was because she had not gone out at all. If she had gone out, perhaps the other party would not have given up this opportunity. She wasn't so careless as to jump into a pit of fire even though she knew it was a trap. Moreover, if she was related to the Tian family, she wouldn't be able to get away with just a few words. Shen Miao asked, "How many experts like you are there in the residence?" Mo Qing was surprised for a moment before frowning. Eldest young master should still have some subordinates and master should also have some subordinates. Adding them up, there should not be more than 30 people. Mo Qing was indeed a top expert and there were very few people like him. With 30 people protecting him, probably no one would dare to do anything to him. But this way, he would be too conspicuous on the streets. It would be strange if no one noticed him. Moreover, to suddenly have so many guards following, Shen Qiu and Shen Xian were not fools. Shen Miao shook her head, understood. Is young lady worried about safety on the road? Mo Qing asked, at that time one can send more manpower. Mo Qing also felt that it was somewhat strange as Shen Miao was never a timid person. Today's matter was somewhat abnormal. Chapter 658. No need. I know what to do. You go down first. Shen Miao said. Mo Qing no longer spoke and silently retreated. Shen Miao looked around and her eyes landed on the half-open window in the room and her heart suddenly moved. She instructed Guyu, open the window even more. Guyu was surprised, young lady, it is still windy outside. Be careful not to catch a cold when you open the window. She really felt that it was very strange. When Shen Miao was young, her body was very afraid of the cold but she did not know why these days she seemed to like to sleep with the windows open at night. But now that it was still broad daylight, why did she still need to open the window? I am not cold. Shen Miao calmly said, go and open it. Guyu looked at Shen Miao's thick outer clothes but did not dare to refute and opened the window in confusion. For the entire day, Shen Miao stayed in the room and she would glance at the window from time to time, causing Jingzhe and Guyu to also look at the window. They thought that there would be some flowers blooming but there was clearly nothing on the windowsill. Shen Miao read for a while and then walked to the windowsill to stand for a while. One did not know what she was looking at. Unknowingly, the sky turned dark. After having dinner and freshening up, Jingzhe and Guyu both withdrew. Shen Miao cut the oil lamp again and again and did not know how many times she had cut it. She only felt that it was quiet outside, as if the entire Ding capital had fallen into a deep sleep and the window was still empty. A trace of disappointment flashed in Shen Miao's eyes and she used the chess pieces on the table to knock on the oil lamp in boredom. The little pieces of the lamp fell on the table and quickly disappeared. Shen Miao gradually felt sleepy and closed her eyes as she laid on the table to take a nap. When Xie Jingxing entered the room, he saw the scene of Shen Miao sleeping soundly on the table. The window was not closed and the door was specially left open for him. The light from the lamp was slightly swaying due to him bringing the cold wind in. Shen Miao used her hands as a pillow and buried her head in her arms as she slept peacefully. He walked to Shen Miao's side and looked at Shen Miao. He paused for a moment before taking off his cloak and gently covering Shen Miao's body. Shen Miao was after all a vigilant person and when he moved, her body moved slightly to the side. She raised her head but did not open her eyes as she said in a daze, Shao Li Zi, massage Bengong's shoulders. Xie Jingxing. He simply leaned against the cabinet at the side and looked at Shen Miao. He laughed and said, hey, did you dream of being an empress again? This abrupt sentence made Shen Miao wake up abruptly, and coincidentally a gust of cold wind blew in from outside. She sneezed, and in a moment she was no longer sleepy. Xie Jingxing walked to the window and closed it, making the room much warmer. He crossed his arms and leaned against the window, asking, "Why are you sleeping here?" Shen Miao looked at the purple-clothed youth, rubbed her eyes and asked, "Why are you only here now?" There was a hint of reproach in her words. She had probably just woken up from her sleep and her mind was not very clear, so she did not realize that there was anything wrong with her words. However, Xie Jingxing noticed it. There was a moment of silence in the room as he walked forward step by step until he reached the table where Shen Miao was sitting. He placed his hands on the table and leaned over to ask, "Are you waiting for me?" Shen Miao recovered to her senses and quickly replied, "No." Xie Jingxing's lips hooked up and his tone was somewhat regretful. "Oh, heard that you waited for me in front of the window for an entire day. So it was not true. Since there is nothing, then I will leave." Finishing, he made a move to leave. "Wait!" Shen Miao called out to him. Xie Jingxing said, "What is it? If you know, then why are you still asking me?" Shen Miao gritted her teeth. Facing Xie Jingxing, she really could not use any calmness and magnanimity because this person was exceptionally vile. Thinking about it, her actions outside the window today was too deliberate. Xie Jingxing most likely had arranged people in the Shen mansion, and it was not strange for him to return and report to Xie Jingxing after seeing her like that. It was just that Xie Jingxing clearly knew and still deliberately asked, which was too vile. But Xie Jingxing's reason was that there were fewer people at night, and even if there was someone accompanying during the day, what if no one discovered it? What he said was too reasonable, and Shen Miao could not find any words to refute, but she did not expect that when Xie Jingxing said it, the two of them directly walked on the street. Chapter 660. Although it looked like there was no one on the street, it was hard to avoid feeling uneasy. What's there to be afraid of? My people are following. If there's anything wrong, they'll warn you. Xie Jingxing said. In the time that Shen Miao was distracted, Xie Jingxing had already tied the scarf on her face, revealing only a pair of eyes. Her eyes were round and watery, the black and white of her eyes distinct and clear. Under the dim light of the lantern, she looked even more adorable. Xie Jingxing helped her put on the hat and raised his eyebrows. Not bad. In order to avoid complications, Shen Miao finally found a set of manservant's clothes to wear. The hat was somewhat inappropriate as it often covered her eyes. It was just that she had forgotten to bring her cloak when she came out. Xie Jingxing looked at her for a moment before covering Shen Miao with his cloak and said, "Let's go." Just like that. Shen Miao was extremely surprised. The east of the city is not far. Xie Jingxing disapprovingly said, "It is also good to walk around. You have not seen the Ding capital at night, right?" Shen Miao was silent. Most of the nights that she had seen were within the square palace walls of Mingqi. Sometimes she would sit in the huge Kun Ning palace and think about the annoying matters in the inner palace. Once she sat, it would be the entire night. Sometimes she would go to the imperial garden to stroll and see Fu Xiu and different beauties talking and laughing. As the head of the 6 palaces, it seemed that her nights were like one night for 10 years, lonely, unfree, cold, and unnoticed by others. She had also regretted and envied the carefree life outside the palace. Xie Jingxing said, "No one here sees you and knows you. Do what you want to do." Shen Miao looked at the other person's handsome brows and suddenly felt some envy in her heart. Speaking of which, Xie Jingxing was able to live till now. He was the little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Linan and also the younger brother of the great Liang's Emperor Yonglu, Prince Rui. Everyone could only see the glory on the surface, but the things that he carried were definitely not lesser than Shen Miao. However, his prideful and arrogant nature seemed to have never changed. Nothing external could change his strength. It was as if no matter how the sun and moon changed and how the stars moved, he would still stand there in an unshakable manner. One could only look up to him. Shen Miao envied people with strong hearts. She felt that she was not as strong as Xie Jingxing because she would occasionally think of Wan Yu and Fu Ming and the various things in the past lifetime and would feel tired. Xie Jingxing's eyes were sharp as he pinched her chin and asked, "What is wrong with you?" Shen Miao broke free from his hand and turned her head, "Nothing." She did not want others to know the emotions in her heart, so she turned and walked 2 steps, but she was not used to wearing a man's boots and the ground was slippery because of the ice, so she almost fell down. Luckily Xie Jingxing grabbed her arm and frowned as he reprimanded, "Be careful." But the hand in his sleeve slid down and grabbed Shen Miao's hand. His hand was slender and cold, but it was just nice to wrap Shen Miao's hand in his palm. Shen Miao's heart moved and subconsciously wanted to break free, but she did not expect that Xie Jingxing's grip was so tight that she was unable to break free. Xie Jingxing said faintly, "I will hold you so that you will not slip." "I will be careful and not slip." Shen Miao said. "Then I'm afraid I'll slip." "You hold my hand," he continued without even frowning. Shen Miao, heavy snow covered the entire street and it was as if the street was silvery white and the lanterns reflected the lovely rain and snow. Shen Miao would look up at the sky from time to time. The sky was very good and very spacious, much better looking than the squarish sky. The street was very quiet and no one would discover her. Some wishes that were not fulfilled in her previous lifetime were fulfilled at this moment. Her palm, which was held by the young man beside her, was slightly damp, but a smile gradually appeared on her face. Chapter 661. The night was really nice, Shen Miao thought. But she did not see that in the eyes of the handsome youth, there was a flash of a smile that was more moving than fireworks. In a house in the east of the city, there was a loud snoring sound coming from one of the rooms. The entire room was filled with the strong smell of alcohol that was pungent to the nose. There were several jars of wine lying on the floor, and the man on the bed was sleeping soundly. In the room next door, there was an 8 or 9-year-old child lying on the bed. This room was obviously much narrower than the room next door. After lying down for a while, he sat up. As if disturbed by the snoring next door, he stood up and walked to the small courtyard surrounded by bamboo fences with a blanket draped over him. The child had gone to the latrine and was about to return to his room when he caught a glimpse of 2 people standing in the courtyard. He was so startled that he was about to cry out, but he saw the taller person flicking a stone at him. In an instant, the child was rooted to the spot, unable to speak. The 2 people then walked towards him. Under the dim light of the lanterns outside, the faces of the 2 people could be seen clearly. One of them was petite and wore the clothes of a manservant, but it could still be seen that she was a woman. She wore a cloak that was so large that it almost didn't fit her body. She also wore a scarf that covered her face. Except for her eyes, everything below her nose was covered. But it made her eyes even more clear, making one think that if the veil was removed, she would also be a beauty. As for the person next to this petite figure, the boy was almost dumbfounded. This person was extremely tall and straight, and wore a beautiful purple robe embroidered with golden cloud patterns. This robe was a little loose, and the belt was black, which made his robe flutter even more. His appearance was even more handsome and beautiful, and when his peach blossom eyes looked over in the night, it felt as if the snow in winter had also bloomed into spring flowers. Could it be that he was an immortal that came down from the heavens? Otherwise, why would his every move be so elegant and beautiful that one could not take their eyes off him? The petite person rolled her eyes at the purple-robed man, and then asked softly, "What is your name?" The child felt his throat loosen, coughed twice, and suddenly found that he could speak again. The person's voice was that of a woman, very gentle, and the child's mood gradually became less fearful. He nervously said, I am Huai Sheng. Huai Sheng. The female asked, is your mother's name Chang Zaiqing? Huai Sheng was stunned, and then his eyes turned red. He carefully looked at the woman and asked, do you know my mother? Do you know where my mother is? I haven't seen her for a long time. They said she wouldn't come back. Someone brought us here, saying that we could see mother, but mother is not here. Shen Miao sighed in her heart. This child was about the same age as Su Ming Lang 2 years ago, but at that time Su Ming Lang was a naive glutinous rice ball and this child was much more pitiful. When Chang Zhaoqing abandoned her husband and son, it was because her husband drank and gambled all day and could no longer live. But before she left, she did not think about how hard it would be for her young son to live with such an irresponsible father. Thus Zhang Zaiqing was not worthy of sympathy nor was she worthy of forgiveness, because a mother who was this cruel was not worthy to be called a mother. Do not be afraid. Shen Miao took out a handkerchief and wiped the child's tears. Huai Sheng was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. This female's eyes were very beautiful and one thought that her looks were not bad. Even though she was wearing a manservant's clothes, her pair of hands were fair and tender. Huai Sheng knew that this kind of hands were different from their hands that were full of calluses. One look and one could tell that she came from a wealthy family. This female must be very wealthy and for such a noble person to wipe the tears of a lowly commoner like him. Even his own mother did not treat him so gently. Huai Sheng was somewhat in a daze looking at it. A light cough sounded and it was the purple-robed male who was standing beside Shen Miao. He glanced at Huai Sheng and coldly said, go in. Huai Sheng's entire body turned cold from that glance. He did not know why, but this extremely beautiful male did not do anything and just gave him a faint glance, but it would also make one feel scared. He regained his senses with a quiver and saw the female in front taking back her handkerchief with a gentle gaze. Shen Miao was only thinking of her own Fu Ming and Wan Yu. Fu Ming and Wan Yu had a father like Fu Xiu-yi, so how was it not hard? Even though she did not escape, she was also powerless to change the ending of her children, and was no better than Zhang Zaiqing. Suppressing the complex emotions in her heart, she said, Huai Sheng, bring us to see your father. Chapter 662. Huai Sheng opened the door to the room and upon entering, there was a strong smell of alcohol. Shen Miao could not help but frown even though she was wearing a veil. Seeing Shen Miao frowning, Huai Sheng seemed to be somewhat embarrassed. He jogged over and took out a diesel lamp from the other side and found a match to light it up. The light flickered as it lit up and lit up the room a little brighter. One saw a middle-aged man lying on the bed. This man was very thin and weak and even his skin was waxy yellow. At the moment he was snoring. Huai Sheng looked anxiously at the two people in front of him and the female said, wake him up. Huai Sheng nodded his head and walked to the man's side before gently shaking the man's arm and softly said, Father, father, someone is coming. That man did not have any reaction at first and seemed to be annoyed by Huai Sheng's shaking. He subconsciously gave a slap and scolded, why are you howling in the middle of the night? Huai Sheng instinctively closed his eyes but before that slap landed, he carefully opened his eyes and saw his father's fearful gaze. He followed his father's gaze and looked over. That beautiful youth who had been looking coldly and indifferently had unknowingly arrived in front of him and his slender hand was strangling the man's throat. Immortal, immortal. Huai Sheng panicked and was both afraid and worried but at the end he resisted the fear and said, my father did not mean to offend you. I beg you to spare his life. Shen Miao swept a glance at the man who was so scared that he instantly lost all his sleepiness before speaking calmly, let him go. Xie Jingxing then released his hand. Huai Sheng was somewhat afraid. His father knelt on the ground and looked at the two people in front of him. His body could not stop trembling, and most likely he instinctively felt the dangerous atmosphere of the other party, especially that beautiful-looking man. Shen Miao opened her mouth. "You're Tianli." Tianli nodded his head and said, "This one is." Shen Miao swept a glance at Tianli. It was rumored that in the Lu province, Tianli was also a handsome scholar and overflowing with talent, thus he was able to capture Zhang Ziqing's heart, and the two of them became husband and wife. It was just that after failing in the imperial examinations, she gradually developed a sense of self-loathing and simply loitered around the gambling dens and restaurants, drinking and gambling. Zhang Ziqing hated these kind of days, thus she left home. Looking at Tianli's appearance, one could slightly understand why Zhang Ziqing would leave home. Tianli no longer had any of the elegant demeanor he once had. The person in front of him was clearly a frustrated and downtrodden man. "Zhang Ziqing is your wife?" Shen Miao asked. Hearing that, Tianli's body trembled and he raised his head to look at Shen Miao. Even if he tried his best to conceal it, Shen Miao could still see the anger and humiliation in his eyes. "No need to worry. I am not Zhang Ziqing's friend, so if you have any thoughts, just say it," Shen Miao said. Tianli looked at Shen Miao seriously, as if he was confirming if what Shen Miao said was true or not. Shen Miao looked face to face with him, and after a long while, Tianli then spat on the ground. "That cheap woman ran away with my money. Shameless." Huaisheng shrank a little and there was some sadness in his eyes. Shen Miao's gaze landed on Huaisheng and said, "Huaisheng, go to the courtyard. I have some words to speak with your father." Huaisheng looked at Shen Miao and then looked at Tianli. In the end, he did not say anything and silently took a blanket and went out. After Huaisheng went out, Shen Miao then let Tianli clearly explain the ins and outs of the matter. It was similar to what the people that Shen Miao sent to inquire about. Zhang Ziqing's husband was originally Tianli. When Tianli and Zhang Ziqing got married, it was considered a much-told story. Zhang Ziqing was a talented female in the Lu province and Tianli was also a talented scholar. Tianli's family also had a few shops, and even though it was not considered as a wealthy family, it could be considered as a small wealthy family. Chapter 663. It was just that later on the Tian family's business was challenged by others and their shops were mortgaged. The Tian family's husband and wife could not take the blow and passed away one after another. Tianli was also affected by this and failed in the imperial examinations that year. At that time Zhang Ziqing was already pregnant and gave birth to Huaisheng, thus there were more places that needed money. The poor couple had 100 sorrows and both of them quarreled incessantly. Tianli loved to drink and gamble and Zhang Ziqing despised that this was not the life she wanted to live. Thus one day she sold the last remaining land deed in the house for money and ran away. Tianli also let people search but no one could find Zhang Ziqing's whereabouts. Thinking about it, Tianli did not know about the friendship between Chang Hu and old General Shen, thus he did not know that Zhang Ziqing came to the Ding capital. Tianli was still gnashing his teeth when he talked about Zhang Ziqing, this poisonous woman. That land deed was left for Huaisheng to marry when he grows up, but she even wanted to sell it away. She does not even have Huaisheng in her heart. She is just a slut. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Xie Jingxing was standing at the other side and looking out of the window, as if he did not have any interest in Tianli's words. However, he was just casually standing there and one was unable to ignore that chilling aura. At the end, Tianli asked, "Someone said that by bringing both of us here, one would be able to see that woman. This young lady, the person who brought us to the Ding capital. Is it you?" Tianli could tell with one glance that the identity of these two people in front of him was not ordinary, especially that male. How would an ordinary person have such an attitude? Moreover, to break into a private residence in the middle of the night and be so arrogant, ordinary people would not have this kind of guts. "It is me." Shen Miao said, I know where Zhang Ziqing is. Tianli was startled for a moment, and when he opened his mouth again, his voice was somewhat trembling as he asked, She. Where is she? Shen Miao frowned slightly. In Tianli's voice, other than anger, there was a trace of longing. Perhaps it was because Zhang Ziqing had been a married couple with him for many years, or perhaps it was because Zhang Ziqing was after all Huaisheng's mother, but this Tianli was not as powerful as what he said and had a little softness towards Zhang Ziqing. This was not something that Shen Miao was happy to see. She said, Zhang Ziqing is currently in the formidable Great General Shen residence in the Ding capital and has become the concubine of the third master of the Shen residence, Shen Wan. Now she is pregnant and Shen Wan treats her very well and dotes on her. One think that not long later she will give birth to Shen Wan's son. There are no other children in Shen Wan residence, and once the child is born, perhaps Zhang Ziqing will be promoted to the official position. Even if she is not, that child will live a life of luxury and glory. Tianli's expression became extremely interesting. It was like the anger of being cuckolded, humiliation and unwillingness, all mixed together in a complicated mess. That little bit of softness in his heart also vanished after Shen Miao's words. The children that Zhang Ziqing gave birth to would be able to live a life of luxury, but looking at Huaisheng, even the title deed for his future wife was sold and nothing was left. Many years later, the two children that crawled out from Zhang Ziqing's womb would have thousands of different lives, like clouds and mud. What people were most afraid of was comparison, and Tianli's heart would not be reconciled no matter what. Shen Miao smiled gently. Not only that, Third Master Shen even divorced his wife for Zhang Ziqing and went against his wife in court. One think that he really dotes on Zhang Ziqing. Now the original third Shen Furen has become a rat that everyone wants to beat up. It is really pitiful. Tianli sneered, this third Master Shen also has no brains. Towards Shen Wan, Tianli did not have any good impression, as the hatred of stealing one's wife was absolutely irreconcilable. Moreover, as a poor person, one would always have enmity towards the rich and powerful. Especially when Zhang Ziqing often showed that she yearned for wealth in front of Tianli, Tianli was even more resentful towards Shen Wan. Chapter 664. To tell the truth, I was entrusted by Third Shen Furen. Shen Miao said, Third Shen Furen was forced by Third Shen Master and Zhang Ziqing to a dead end, but now there is no way at all. Third Shen Furen is planning to put up a life and death struggle, and to make Third Shen Master and Zhang Ziqing uncomfortable, thus she found you. Me? Tianli looked at Shen Miao and gradually realized something in his heart. Noble person's meaning is, explain to Third Shen Master at an appropriate time that Zhang Ziqing is your wife. Let Third Shen Master end this mistake as soon as possible. Tianli said. Shen Miao did not give Tianli any time to hesitate and said, could it be that you are willing to see your wife grow old together with others? You still have feelings for her and want to let her live? Did she even consider half a bit for you? If she still has a conscience in her heart, not to mention yourself, she would be reluctant to part with Huaisheng. But the truth is that she would even take away the last bit of savings that she left for Huaisheng. Zhang Ziqing only has herself in her heart, and she never put you father and son in her heart. Encountering such injustice and still want to repay evil with good. Tianli, could it be that your Tian family are all disciples of Bodhisattva and are all merciful and indiscriminate? These words were very impolite, and the corner of Xia Jingxing's lips rose slightly when he heard it, and he looked at Shen Miao meaningfully. Tianli's face flushed red when he heard it, but he did not dare and could not refute Shen Miao's words. The most important thing is, why should Huaisheng live in such hardships and hardship, but Zhang Ziqing and Shen Wan's son can be free and unfettered. If one day Huaisheng met this younger brother of a different father, at that time the younger brother would be a person and Huaisheng would only be able to serve him like a servant. Zhang Ziqing would only recognize the younger brother and not him, so what would Huaisheng think? Tianli, think about it carefully. Are you really willing? Shen Miao's words always carried a hint of bewitchment, making one unconsciously think along with her words. And what she said was obviously what Tianli was most concerned about. No matter how bad Tianli was, and even if he was very rude to Huai Sheng, he still had a little more conscience than Sang Zaiqing, else he would not be a gambling addict, but still left the last piece of land for Huai Sheng to marry. Huai Sheng said, "Benefactor, I know that I am unwilling, but she is Huai Sheng's mother after all. I just want to get her back. If she is beaten to death, Huai Sheng will also be sad. Do not let Huai Sheng know of this matter." Shen Miao said, "After the matter is done, third Shen Furen will pay you father and son a large sum of money. This amount of silver is much more than the original title deed. With this amount of silver, you can run as far as you want. Start a new life in a place where no one knows you. Without Sang Zaiqing, Huai Sheng still has you as his father. Treat Huai Sheng well and Huai Sheng might not be worse off than now." There were two things in this world that could not be held back, the water that had been spilled, and the people that had walked out. Sang Zaiqing had taken the initiative to walk out of your life, and now she is living a good life, so how are you going to chase her back? Because of your sincerity, or because of Huai Sheng and her mother's concern? Do you think that this is possible? Tianli painfully closed his eyes. What Shen Miao said was not wrong. Sang Zaiqing was living so well now, and there was really no reason to go back to that unbearable life. If she really cared about him, and cared about the mother-son relationship with Huai Sheng, then she would not have sold the title deed and escaped. The female wearing a veil in front was still speaking calmly, "Every person for themselves, the heavens and earth will destroy them. She was heartless first, so why do you need to talk about righteousness? Right now there is a chance to change your life. If you miss it once, there would not be a second time. No matter if you are stepping on Sang Zaiqing's life to move forward, you are not wrong. Because this is what Sang Zaiqing owes you father and son. Will you do it or not?" Chapter 665. Following Shen Miao's words, many things flashed past Tian Li's eyes. Chang Zaiqing's disgusted eyes, the neighbors pointing at him after he escaped, Huai Sheng always sitting alone in the corner, not knowing what he was thinking, and forever wearing tattered clothes. If one day he could change his life, and be like those well-off rich families to give Huai Sheng a good life. Tianli suddenly raised his head and in an instant made up his mind, "Do. I promise to listen to all your instructions, but you must give me enough money so that both of us father and son can leave this place without worrying about food and clothing." Shen Miao raised her eyebrows. Sometimes rumors were not credible and it was said that Tianli was like a scoundrel. One did not think that it would be so simple today. Tianli was not difficult to deal with, perhaps it was because of Huai Sheng. Even though this man did not have any ability and his temperament was not good, but at the end he still had a conscience. "The money will be given to you." The one who spoke was Xie Jingxing. He stood in the shadows and leaned against the door as he spoke lazily, "Do not have any other ideas, otherwise." Tianli suddenly trembled and quickly lowered his head as he spoke in fear, "This lowly one does not dare." One did not know why, but when facing this man, it made him feel an indescribable fear. Even from the beginning till now, the one who spoke was a masked female, but the purple-clad male's aura was pervasive in the narrow room. Shen Miao glanced at Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was rather useful. If one were to threaten someone, there was no need to say any harsh words and just directly bring Xie Jingxing over to that side and the other party would wilt first. When Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao both left the room, Huai Sheng came over and looked at Shen Miao before asking timidly, "Are you able to find mother?" Shen Miao looked at Huai Sheng and said, "Sleep early." She then took the lead and walked out. Her steps were after all a little hurried and Xie Jingxing followed. After leaving the alley in the east of the city, they reached the streets outside. Xie Jingxing glanced at Shen Miao's expression and said, "You feel sorry for that child?" one must continue to do apologies. Shen Miao said, I am also a selfish person. You did not do anything wrong. Xie Jingxing casually said, you are not a disciple of Bodhisattva. He used the words that Shen Miao said to Tianli just now to comfort Shen Miao. Shen Miao looked at him and said, you are. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? You accompanied me out in the middle of the night and helped me threaten Tianli to prevent future troubles. You are a disciple of Bodhisattva. Otherwise, why would you be so kind? Xie Jingxing chuckled, you don't seem to appreciate it at all. Shen Miao's lips slowly curled up. His relationship with Xie Jingxing had unknowingly gradually changed. There was no need to be tit for tat as the other party was very intelligent and was even more magnanimous. It seemed that there were many things that he did not have to do alone, which made it easier for him. For example, at this very moment, on the deserted snowy street, they walked side by side as if they were taking a stroll. She seemed to still be that Empress Shen in her bones, but also seemed to have something that she did not have in the past. Zhang Ziqing's matter, do you need my help? Xie Jingxing said lazily, if you beg me, I can consider it. Then there is no need for your Highness Prince Rui to worry. Shen Miao smiled, lest there be any side issues. You have a good idea again. Xie Jingxing glanced at her and said with a smile that was not a smile, sometimes feel that when would there be a difficult problem that you are unable to solve, perhaps you will also beg me. Most likely there is no such thing. Shen Miao answered. Chapter 666. Regret. Xie Jingxing's words were filled with regret. Shen Miao smiled. There were new things happening in the Ding capital every day, but the new things that happened every day would quickly cover up the new things that happened a few days ago. For example, the lawsuit between the Shen and Chen family a few days ago. Everyone treated it as a joke, and after seeing it, they would forget about it. As for the Shen residents, it was the same. The servants still did what they needed to do, and the only difference was that Qiu Shui Yuan had changed to a new master, and the new master had gained Shen Wan's favor, almost catching up to third Shen Furen who had just entered the household. Compared to Chen Roqiu, Zhang Ziqing was better at building relationships with the surrounding people. Most likely it was because she did not have Chen Roqiu's air of self-righteousness. She was hearty and delicate, and the way she treated others made others feel comfortable. Not only did Shen Wan like her, even Shen Gui and old Shen Furen also felt that she was not bad and felt that it was a wise decision for Shen Wan to divorce Chen Roqiu. Shen Wan treated Zhang Ziqing well, and old Shen Furen specially found an eminent monk to take a look, saying that the child in Zhang Ziqing's stomach was definitely a male. Old Shen Furen's last bit of nitpicking towards Zhang Ziqing's birth was gone. The most urgent matter in the Shen residence was to quickly add a male child, otherwise outsiders would laugh at the Shen residence for having no descendants. Shen Wan was always smiling every day. Zhang Ziqing gave him advice and was able to properly manage the matters in the residence, as if she was very familiar with it. He was happy to be relaxed. To be able to write poetry and also manage the family business, there was no male that would not like such a virtuous wife. On this day, Zhang Ziqing and Shen Wan were talking in the courtyard. Zhang Ziqing was wrapped in a thick fur coat, and there was a brazier by her feet and a heater in her hands. Because he was afraid that she would catch a cold, Shen Wan let the surrounding maids do their best to serve her. Zhang Ziqing said, "Master is somewhat free today." Shen Wan pulled her hand to his and smiled, "Not only today. These days there are no matters in court and one can accompany you and the child more." "That is really good." Zhang Ziqing smiled, "The child can also get closer to father." These words made Shen Wan extremely happy. He hugged Zhang Ziqing in his embrace and sighed, "Now what I hope in my heart is nothing more than for you to give birth to a child, then all these things that I have done would not be in vain." Chen Roqiu seemed to have understood something, and seeing that Shen Wan's brows did not relax, she asked, "Is master still worried about 5th Shen young lady's matter a few days ago?" To let Shen Miao marry to Prince Zhou, or to let Shen Miao and Prince Zhou have a relationship, no matter which one it was, until now there was no news at all. It seemed that things weren't going well. Even though Zhang Ziqing did not know why Shen Wan wanted so much, she knew that this matter was definitely related to Shen Wan's career. Shen Wan smiled bitterly and shook his head. These days Shen Xian has been watching Shen Miao very well, and Shen Miao did not even leave the residence, thus one could not find an opportunity. It's like an iron bucket, it's hard to make a move. As he spoke, he seemed to be disappointed. This can't go on. Zhang Ziqing's eyes turned and smiled. What is so difficult about this? If fifth Shen young lady does not go out, then let fifth Shen young lady take the initiative to go out. To tell the truth, if fifth Shen young lady were to go out, General Shen would inevitably let her bring a group of guards. General Shen is after all from the military, and the people around him are all experts. If one really wanted to make a move, one might not succeed in one shot. It is better to let fifth Shen young lady take the initiative to go out and moreover sneak out so that General Shen would not find out. This way it would be much easier. Shen Wan's eyes flashed, and after thinking for a moment, he still shook his head. Shen Miao usually does not have any secrets, so it would be difficult to coax her out. Even Shen Miao had a good relationship with a young lady called Feng and Ning, and these days she was staying in the Feng residence, and if Shen Miao were to come out in Feng and Ning's name, Shen Miao would definitely be alert. Chapter 667. Young lady, no matter how calm she usually is, she is still timid and there will be repercussions in her heart. Zhang Ziqing however smiled gently. Master might as well take an unconventional approach, for example using fifth Shen young lady's parents or older brother as a raft and say that they are in danger or something. One would be flustered, and no matter how calm fifth Shen young lady usually is, when it concerns one's own blood relatives, one think that one would panic. Master might as well make use of this opportunity. When Shen Wan heard that, he first thought about it carefully before holding Zhang Ziqing's hands tightly. Even though there are some loopholes, it is still a good idea. Once it is perfected in detail, perhaps it could really be put to use. He looked at Zhang Ziqing with some excitement and did not hide the appreciation in his eyes. You always give me surprises. Zhang Ziqing lowered her head slightly and smiled. Master is really joking. Now that one is following Master, one would do one's best to think for Master. Even though this matter is not open and above board, but Ziqing also know that there is no father and son in court, and Ziqing would put Master first. Actually, the matter of scheming against Shen Miao was considered a vicious plan if it was set out. Even though Shen Wan was very appreciative of Zhang Ziqing's ingenious plan for him, but in the future when he thought about it, he would inevitably feel that Zhang Ziqing was ruthless. Zhang Ziqing took the lead to say it out herself. First she said that there was no father and son in court, and then she put Shen Wan first in everything. Not only did it not make Shen Wan feel bad, it made Shen Wan appreciate Zhang Ziqing even more. He felt that she was broad-minded, and it was rare for her to think of him wholeheartedly. She was a rare female. Therefore Shen Wan looked at Zhang Ziqing affectionately. With such a beauty, what more can one ask for? Zhang Ziqing also meekly said, it is Ziqing's fortune to meet Master. Ziqing dare not forget Master's good treatment of Ziqing. The lower she sat, the more Shen Wan doted on her, but did not see the flash of pride in Zhang Ziqing's eyes. In Zhang Ziqing's eyes, any man or any feelings were just passing clouds. Only those who had truly experienced poverty would know the value of wealth. She wanted to hold on to Shen Wan tightly, not because of Shen Wan himself, but because Shen Wan could bring her a life without worrying about food and clothing. Chang Zhaoqing was different from Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu still loved Shen Wan in her heart, so Chen Roqiu would lose her mind because of Shen Wan's actions. What Zhang Ziqing loved was the wealth of the Shen residence and the identity of an official's furen, thus she was more clear-headed about what she had to do. For a man like Shenwan and a person like Chen Roqiu who was an exquisite person, it was inevitable that they would end up like this. Zhang Ziqing knew in her heart that just by relying on poetry and songs, it was not enough to capture this man's heart. She had to display her talents and make Shenwan feel that she was useful to him. Only then would Shenwan never give up on her. Zhang Ziqing did very well. Shenwan accompanied Chang Zhaoqing for a while before he got up and left. He still had some official business to attend to, so he seriously instructed Chang Zhaoqing's servants before leaving with his servants. When he returned to his study, his personal manservant slowly walked over with a letter and said, "Master, the gatekeeper said that someone handed a letter to you, but I don't know who sent it." Shenwan took the letter and saw that the top of the envelope was also empty. It was obvious that the sender was afraid that others would notice the signature. As officials in court, they would occasionally have some confidential letters, thus Shenwan did not dare to delay and quickly opened the letter. The first line of words that opened the letter made Shenwan's entire person freeze on the spot. That line of words said, "Third Shen Master, do you know that your favored concubine is a used shoe?" Shenwan almost lost his balance. He supported himself with one hand on the table and calmed himself down. Only then did he quickly continue to read the letter. The letter was written very simply, but the contents of the letter were not simple at all. That letter said that Zhang Ziqing had already married before in the Lu province and had a son. Now that she was in the Shen residence and had become Shenwan's concubine, the most important thing was that at this time, Zhang Ziqing had not separated from her original husband. If it was more serious, Shenwan could even say that he had seized another's wife and could be sued in court. Shenwan originally did not believe it and looked at the letter with some disdain. He even thought that this letter would be the evidence of Chen Roqiu's provocation. But when he saw the last line of words, his body trembled and he suddenly froze. Zhang Ziqing's private place had a small red mole. This was an ironclad fact. Chapter 668. A normal person would not be able to see the little red mole on Zhang Ziqing's private parts. But what kind of person was Shenwan? If he would easily believe this sentence without any evidence, then he would not be an official who had been in the court for so many years. He swept a glance at the letter and it said that this father and son pair had already entered the Ding capital and were staying in a private residence in the eastern part of the city. There was even a specific address at the top. Shenwan quickly tore the letter into shreds and said to the servant beside him, "Prepare the carriage." Shenwan did not believe a strange letter, but he was unable to trust Zhang Ziqing without reservation. It would be better to see it with his own eyes. When the horse carriage reached the residence in the eastern part of the city, Shenwan did not get off the carriage himself but hid inside and let his servant knock on the door. The one who opened the door was an 8 or 9-year-old boy. Because this boy's figure was too thin and weak, his gaze lacked the innocence of a child and was more mature, looking like a youth. When Shenwan saw that boy's face clearly, he sucked in a breath of cold air. In that instant, Shenwan knew that the words in the letter were true. There was no other reason but that this boy was just too similar to Zhang Ziqing. Even the charm between the brows was extremely similar, but compared to Zhang Ziqing's open and candid appearance, this boy appeared to be much more inferior and timid. But no matter what, the appearance was 100% similar. The Zhang family did not have any other heirs, thus it was impossible for him to beat Zhang Ziqing's younger brother. Shenwan's personal servant jumped in shock from this boy's appearance, but still followed Shenwan's instructions and asked, "Little brother, do you know where Zhang Ziqing is?" That boy looked at him warily and asked, "Why are you looking for my mother?" Shenwan closed his eyes. There was no doubt that what the letter said was the truth. Zhang Ziqing indeed had a husband and son in the Lu province. One just did not know why it was so well concealed. The servant said a few perfunctory words to that boy and returned to Shenwan's side to report. He carefully looked at Shenwan and asked, "Master, investigate." Shenwan panted, send people to the Lu province to investigate. You must investigate clearly what kind of background Chang Ziqing has. The reason why Xinhuan appreciated Zhang Ziqing was because Zhang Ziqing was gentle, frank and talented, moreover she was currently pregnant with his child. But if Shui Chang Ziqing really had a husband and son in Lu province, then all of this would become a joke. He was still complacent about raising other people's wife, but since Chang Ziqing had abandoned her husband and son, she was definitely not as gentle as she looked on the surface. Xinhuan was also very picky in certain aspects. On one hand, he hoped that his wife could take care of worldly affairs in an orderly manner. On the other hand, he hoped that she could maintain the aura of an otherworldly fairy. And everything that happened today made Chang Ziqing instantly change into another person in his eyes, making Xinhuan feel extremely disgusted. In the next few days, Xinhuan seemed to be very busy. Every day he would be outside, and even when he returned to the Xin residence, he would head into the study, so Chang Ziqing was not able to see him. Occasionally, she would come over to deliver pastries to Xinhuan, but Xinhuan's behavior was not as intimate as before. Initially Xinhuan's attitude made Chang Ziqing somewhat uneasy, but Xinhuan's personal servant told Chang Ziqing that Xinhuan had taken up an errand these few days. He was very busy, thus he had no time to care about other things. Chang Ziqing then felt relieved. However, the truth was that Xinhuan finally received a letter from the Lu province. In the letter that was sent back from the Lu province, it was indeed no different from the letter that was sent by the stranger. Chang Ziqing originally had a husband, and it was considered a story of a generation in the Lu province. After Xinhuan finished reading the letter, he was so angry that he almost flipped the table. He had taken in a noble concubine, and it was someone else's wife, and now that the other party's husband and son had found their way to the Ding capital, once it was discovered, one feared that he would become a joke in the entire Ding capital. Moreover, those imperial censors would not let go of this opportunity to censure him. Chapter 669. If it was only like this, then it was alright, but it was because of Zhang Ziqing that he divorced Chen Roqiu and even formed a feud with the Chen family. Now if this was spread out, others would say that he mistook the fish's eyes for pearls. Xinhuan's heart was already faintly regretting it. Zhang Ziqing's belly had his child, but he was afraid that his career would be ruined because of Zhang Ziqing. In terms of feelings and power, he still had to value power. Not to mention that the woman who was sleeping beside him was someone else's wife, Xinhuan was unable to let it go. His eyes were deep in thought for a while, and just as he was about to give instructions, he saw one of his attendants rushing in and shouting, "Master, something has happened." Not good. Xinhuan frowned and said angrily, "What is the propriety of being so flustered?" That attendant was trembling as he handed a letter to Xinhuan. One did not know why, but his eyes were somewhat evasive. Xinhuan looked suspiciously at the attendant. This attendant was the person who followed him and usually followed him to pass messages to his colleagues. After looking at 2 lines, Xinhuan's face suddenly turned green, and if one looked carefully, one would be able to detect some fear. In the imperial study, Emperor Wenhui was in a rage. Emperor Wenhui sneered as he threw the memorial in his hands onto the ground. The eunuchs beside him did not dare to breathe loudly. When the emperor was angry, there would be millions of corpses. Especially at this moment, one dared not touch Emperor Wenhui's bad luck. The first item on the memorial was a list of things that Xinhuan had done from a few years ago until now. It didn't seem to be a big deal. But Emperor Wenhui was after all a person who had walked out of the bloody storm that his brothers fought for power. The memorial was written very cleverly, but every line described the unusual relationship between Xinhuan and Prince Ding, Fu Xiu-yi. Among the 9 sons of Emperor Wenhui, the one he was most assured about was the Crown Prince and Prince Ding. The Crown Prince was after all born of an orthodox lineage and his body was weak, thus Emperor Wenhui would subconsciously be more relaxed with him. Even though Prince Ding was outstanding, he did not care about the matters of the court, and in addition Consort Dong Shu had a temperament that did not fight or snatch. This made Emperor Wen Hui feel extremely comfortable. Emperor Wen Hui could see the open and secret fights between the various princes but would not say anything to stop it. As long as they didn't go overboard, he would be happy to see such a situation of mutual checks and balances. Once one touches power, one would not be willing to let it go. Seeing his sons grow up one by one and reaching the age of dragons and tigers, Emperor Wen Hui would also be wary. What he hated the most was that the princes and the ministers were too close to each other. Although this was an unavoidable fact, for example, his 9 sons each had a group of supporters. But when this son became the Prince Ding who did not fight or snatch, Emperor Wen Hui was somewhat unable to accept it. On the contrary, he was even angrier than before. In the past, Fu Xiuyi showed that he did as he pleased and did not care about worldly affairs, but now in Emperor Wen Hui's eyes, there was only one word: act. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Emperor Wen Hui's face was gloomy. Each and every one of them think that Zhen is easy to fool. Since it is like this, Zhen will fulfill their wish. The matters of the imperial court had always changed in an instant. There were many who went to the emperor's hall in the morning and became a farmer in the evening. If they committed a crime and became Tian Shirang, then their luck was pretty good. Most of them ended up in prison, and a knife slit their throats, implicating their entire family. Shen Wan was such a person. After the fight between the Shen and Chen family a few days ago, one thought that things had gradually calmed down. Who knew that a group of officials suddenly came to the Shen residence to arrest people? Some curious commoners inquired and heard that it was Shen Wan who did not do his job well in court and implicated the entire Shen residence. The specific charges were not clear and the commoners were easy to coax as they believed that he did not do his job well. But there were smart people who could see that the matter was unusual. One knew that if the task was not done well, then why would the entire Shen residence be destroyed? This was clearly a serious crime that required the execution of the entire family. Chapter 670. The commoners who were passing by looked at the Shen residence that was no longer the same as before and started to point fingers. As they spoke, they started to talk about the formidable great general Shen Xian. They said that 2 years ago the Shen family wanted to separate from the family when Shen Xian was in dire straits, and afterwards Shen Xian's name was removed from the Shen family. One did not think that Shen Xian was able to obtain a blessing in disguise and escaped a calamity. When these words reached Shen Miao's ears in the Shen mansion, Shen Miao only smiled without a care. Luo Tan clenched her fists and had an angry expression. This is called retribution, but the time has not yet arrived. In the beginning they humiliated eldest Bo and auntie, and if they knew that only you all are fine, one fear that they would be angry. Luo Ling pondered for a moment before shaking his head. What crime did third Shen master commit that there would be such fanfare? Shen Miao said, since His Majesty is so angry, one must have done something to behave atrociously on the Tai Sui's head. These matters have nothing to do with us. Luo Tan nodded her head, indeed. Then let us wait and watch the show. Shen Qiu looked at Shen Miao with a worried expression and hesitated to speak. After Luo Ling and Luo Tan left, Shen Qiu did not leave and pulled Shen Miao into the room. After seeing that the door was locked, he then asked Shen Miao, younger sister, was it you who did the Shen family's matters? Shen Miao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Eldest brother, why do you push everything onto my head? If His Majesty wants to punish those who did not do their job well, I do not have the ability to intervene in third Shu's matters. Shen Qiu pressed his forehead with some headache and said, younger sister, eldest brother knows that there are some things that you are not willing to say to outsiders. But the matters of the court are not as simple as you think. Sometimes it seems that you have one, but perhaps in the future there would be variables and one would be implicated. He rambled on for a while and Shen Miao was helpless. eldest brother, to tell you the truth, this matter indeed has nothing to do with me. Shen Wan was imprisoned because Chen Roqiu stabbed him in the back. At that time Chen Roqiu and Shen Wan quarreled to the death. Do you think that Chen Roqiu would leave it at that? This time it was Shen Qiu's turn to be surprised. Chen Roqiu? After all, Chen Roqiu had lived with Shen Wan for so many years and knew Shen Miao's matters like the palm of her hand. If you really want to stab someone in the back, it's much easier than ordinary people. Shen Miao said. Shen Wan was harmed by the person next to him and implicated the entire residence. What does it have to do with me? When Shen Qiu heard it, he first thought about it carefully before looking suspiciously at Shen Miao. How do you know about these matters so clearly? I always look forward to them being unlucky, so naturally I sent people to monitor their every move. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing had mingled together for a long time, so there was a sense of fearlessness in her words. Shen Qiu usually saw Shen Miao with a dignified and imposing manner, and this was the first time he saw her in such a manner. He did not know why, but he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Then, he shook his head and interrupted the wild thoughts in his mind. Even if it's surveillance, it's too much of a coincidence. He widened his eyes and looked a little comical. Sister, could it be that you're adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes? Shen Miao smiled. Eldest brother, feel that it is how it is. Anyhow, these matters are not related to me at all. Shen Qiu's face collapsed as he said, how can you have such guts? If this pierced the heavens, Shen Miao interrupted his nagging, how did eldest brother become so long-winded? It is only a small matter and the Shen family only have themselves to blame for falling to such a state. If Shen Wan did not do things badly, how would he be caught by others? If he was in harmony with Chen Roqiu, how would he be provoked successfully? One should first think about what one did wrong before saying that others are wrong. Shen Miao's words made Shen Qiu dumbfounded, and it was only until Shen Miao's maid sent him out of the courtyard that Shen Qiu reacted and slapped his head to regain his senses. Shen Miao was obviously using sophistry to pester endlessly, and one did not know where did she learn this from. It was clearly a bold move that even the emperor and the court officials were playing in the palm of her hands, but she made it sound so innocent. Shen Qiu was flabbergasted. When did Shen Miao learn to speak such self-righteous nonsense? And this posture was very familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere. Where was it? Chapter 671. In the room, Shen Miao sent Shen Qiu off and sat at the table with a sigh of relief. It was just the beginning, and Emperor Wen Hui had a swift and decisive temperament. Most likely he could not tolerate the princes and the courtiers getting too close, not to mention all these matters started a few years ago. From the very beginning, she must not forget who she wanted to deal with. Since her rebirth, many things had gradually faded away. For example, the people of the Shen family. Even if she did not do anything, she could still court her own death. But Fu Xiuyi was different. Fu Xiuyi was like the most vicious snake that was hidden in the dark. He looked harmless but would suddenly jump out and bite people. Just like the last time he asked Shen Wan to matchmake him and Prince Shou. Even if Shen Miao tried to hide it in front of Fu Xiuyi still stared at her. It was no longer appropriate for him to endure and continue planning. He might as well tear apart the cloth covering him and start an evenly matched game of chess right now. What Fu Xiuyi was most afraid of was that his ambition would be exposed. Even though Shen Wan's matter would make Emperor Wen Hui suspicious, but with Fu Xiuyi's means, he would not be defeated so easily. He would definitely come up with a rebuttal. But how could Shen Miao miss this opportunity? Even if one could not defeat him this time, one must make Fu Xiuyi shed a layer of skin. Just one Shen Wan was not enough, this chess game had to be more exciting. Shen Miao let Jing Zhe call Mo Qing in from outside and whispered a few words to Mo Qing. From the luxurious mansion to the prison, it was only a matter of one night. Xinhuan felt that in these 2 years, the Xin residence was very unlucky. It was as if he had collided with something, and everything was going wrong. Originally, it was the second branch that was in trouble. After the second branch, it was the third branch's turn. Now all the people in the Xin residence were in jail, except for the first household. Now that the first household had been reactivated by Emperor Wenhui, no matter what would happen in the future, at least at present they were more glorious than them. Speaking of which, the Xin residence continuously bumped into bad luck, just like after the separation of the first household, or more accurately, it started from Xin Xian's return to the capital 2 years ago. Could it be that someone had secretly placed a curse on the Xin residence? In the cell next door, the Xin family's womenfolk were locked up, and old Xin Furan and Chang Zaiqing were locked together. When Xinhuan heard old Xin Furan's complaints and moans, his heart started to feel irritated. Thinking back to 2 years ago, the number of people that came to visit the formidable great general Xin residence could be found everywhere, even though they were all here for Xin Xian's name. But Xin Xian was not in the capital all year round and the Xin residence was not short of money, so who would not say that they were imposing when they went out? Although Xin Gui and himself were both civil officials, they were still climbing the ranks year after year. His 2 daughters were slender and elegant, and they could be of help if they found a good marriage partner. Xin Yuanbo and Xin Yuan were still healthy and Ren Wanyun was astute and Chen Roqiu was gentle, and it was a good scene of a harmonious family. However, in just a short 2 years, things had changed, and he had actually fallen to such a state. With a sickly voice Xin Gui asked, "Sandi, what crime have you actually committed? His Majesty is actually going to arrest our entire residence." "I did something wrong." Xinhuan sneered. Second older brother is also someone who had served in the court before. One do not know if His Majesty has the heart to arrest anyone, and just casually make up a reason to arrest them. This is the reason for His Majesty to pinch me. If it was really a bad job, one would definitely not arrest everyone in the residence. This clearly meant that one was going to send a punitive expedition against them. When Chang Zaiqing, who was next door, heard it, she exclaimed, and there was some anxiety in her words, "Is it His Majesty's intention? Why would His Majesty deliberately do this? Could it be that Master had angered His Majesty in some way?" Chapter 672. If it was normal times, Xinhuan would definitely comfort Sang Zaiqing with a few words. But when she thought of the news that she received from the Lu province that Chang Zaiqing actually had a husband and son, she felt disgusted. Now seeing Chang Zaiqing's interaction, one did not know what kind of mentality it came from, but Xinhuan's heart was somewhat pleased. Chang Zaiqing had been wholeheartedly rushing towards a future of riches and honor, so she had concealed her true appearance. But now that all her riches and honor were gone, it was probably too late for regrets. He waved his hand and said impatiently, "I don't know." In his heart, however, he was thinking about the letter that his follower had given him. The letter that the long attendant gave was written by an official who had a close personal relationship with him. That official did not know where did he get the news that Xinhuan's sworn enemy had sent a memorial, and this memorial was not written on anything else but the evidence of Xinhuan and Fu Xiuyi's relationship in these few years. Even though Xinhuan did not really work for Fu Xiuyi these few years, but in the early years he was indecisive and did not want to give up the chess piece of Prince Ding, thus his attitude was somewhat ambiguous. In the eyes of others, it seemed that he and Prince Ding had long formed an alliance. And when these evidence were seen by Emperor Wenhui, one could imagine how furious Emperor Wenhui was. One feared that it would be difficult for this matter to be resolved peacefully. As for why his nemesis would suddenly have that evidence, Xinhuan actually had a vague guess in his heart. Chen Roqiu and him had been husband and wife for so many years, and because Chen Roqiu herself did not understand the court affairs, Xinhuan did not deliberately guard against Chen Roqiu. Some things were very private. If it was Chen Ruoqiu who stabbed him in the back, everything could be explained. Thinking of how Chen Qiu was originally gentle and pleasant to him, but now she had gone crazy and was in a life and death struggle, Shen Wan's gaze landed on Chang Ziqing next door and his expression gradually sank. If there was no Zhang Ziqing, he and Chen Qiu would not be estranged from each other and there would not be this situation now. Thinking like this, Shen Wan was indifferent towards his flesh and blood in Chang Ziqing's womb. The matter of Shen Wan's entire family being imprisoned, on the surface it was not handled well, but those who knew the inside story knew that Emperor Wen Hui was furious that Shen Wan was privately close to Fu Xiuyi. This matter implicated the entire Shen residence and of course Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi, would not be able to avoid it. Fu Xiuyi had a lot of hidden eyes in the palace and very quickly knew the whole story. Fu Xiuyi did not think that Shen Wan and Chen Qiu's family matters would actually involve him. Now was the crucial time and one must not let Emperor Wen Hui be suspicious of oneself at this time. At the same time, Fu Xiuyi was also very puzzled. This year Emperor Wen Hui's health was not as good as before, so he was more sensitive to the relationship between the princes and the courtiers. At such a sensitive time, there were rumors that he and Shen Wan were close. This timing seemed too coincidental. Although Shen Wan was the one who had cheated him, in reality, his losses were no less than Shen Wan's. The more he thought, the more stuffy he felt. Fu Xiuyi coldly said, unable to accomplish anything and more than enough to spoil things. Pei Lang pondered, Your Highness, it would be best for you to distance yourself from this matter as soon as possible. No matter what, I have to prove my innocence. Naturally I know. Fu Xiuyi said, what does teacher think? The evidence is irrefutable. Trying to deny it would be more deliberate. Your Highness might as well admit it and push the matter to Shen Wan alone. Even though it is taboo for His Majesty for a prince to form a clique, if Shen Wan were to take the initiative to seek shelter, Your Highness would be annoyed and perhaps Your Majesty's heart would be more broad-minded. Fu Xiuyi nodded his head, teacher's thoughts are exactly the same as mine. Shen Wan's chess move could only be a sacrifice. But this kind of useless person, keeping him would cause more trouble and it would be better to get rid of him earlier. These words meant that Shen Wan was going to be sacrificed. The matters in the memorials could not be denied as there was evidence for everything and anyone who had the heart to investigate would be able to find it. But if this was Shen Wan's idea alone and it was Shen Wan who wanted to climb up to Fu Xiuyi but Fu Xiuyi was unmoved, then all these would be excusable and Fu Xiuyi would be the one who was implicated. Chapter 673. It was just that in this way, Shen Wan's sins would be heavier and under Emperor Wen Hui's rage, Shen Wan's punishment would be heavier. But of course Fu Xiuyi would not care about Shen Wan's ending. Fu Xiuyi would never give unnecessary feelings to those who were useless to him and even caused trouble. I and the Shen family are really fated. Fu Xiuyi's expression was cold, many times bad things were done in the hands of the Shen family. One do not know why, but this time even though it was Chen Qiu who started it, I feel that it is not that simple, as if there is someone manipulating it from behind. Pei Lang's heart jumped but his expression was still as indifferent as before. The urgent matter is that Your Highness should first prove yourself. The longer it drags on, the more His Majesty's anger would not dissipate and one fear that it would implicate Your Highness. Fu Xiuyi smiled, even though it is somewhat troublesome, it is not a dead end. But does teacher think that the Shen family should be kept or not? Pei Lang replied warmly, since they obstructed Your Highness's great cause, they cannot be kept. Fu Xiuyi smiled brightly and stared at Pei Lang, teacher's words are exactly what I have in mind. I still have some matters so teacher can leave. I will discuss with teacher about the important matters. Pei Lang nodded his head and left after bidding farewell. But he did not see that Fu Xiuyi was staring at Pei Lang's back and a trace of darkness flashed in his eyes. The matter of Xinhuan's family being imprisoned was known by everyone, and naturally it was spread to the residence of Prince Qin. In front of the stone table in the garden, Xinyu was stunned when she heard it. It was Huang Fuhao who looked at the spy who came to report and asked, "Oh, is it true that the entire residence is in prison?" "Absolutely true." That spy said. One heard that the emperor was very angry and wanted to sentence them to death this time. Huang Fuhao turned his head to look at Xinyu's expression. Xinyu was surprised and somewhat inconceivable, but she did not see any sadness. Involuntarily, the words that Chen Roqiu said to her that day surfaced in her mind. At that time Xinyu felt that there was a hidden meaning in Chen Roqiu's words. Could it be that the outcome of the Shen family today was all because of Chen Roqiu? Xinyu did not dare to let Huang Fuhao sense her emotions and pretended to lower her head to reveal a sorrowful look. How could it be? Just because the task was not done well, why would Emperor Wen Hui confiscate the family? One fear that it was not because of this reason. Huang Fuhao smiled. One fear that there is another reason. He finished speaking and looked at Xinyu. "You want to go and see Shindarin?" Xinyu jumped in shock and stammered, "If one were to go now, one fear that it would make father sad and add trouble to your highness." No need, she was married to the Wang family, so she was not implicated in the Shen family's confiscation. But if people were to discover that Xinyu was still here, who knew if she would be locked up as well? The Shen family was heartless towards Xinyu, and Xinyu also did not have any morality towards the Shen family. She was afraid of implicating herself and it was too late to avoid it, so why would she impatiently go up? Hearing this, Huang Fuhao didn't dwell on this issue and just smiled. Xinyu secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. After Huang Fuhao left, Xinyu wanted to write a letter to Chen Roqiu and ask her if this matter was related to Chen Roqiu. Even though there was some lingering fear and panic in her heart, but seeing that the entire Shen family was in prison, Xinyu's heart had some schadenfreude. Especially Zhang Ziqing, this woman who had occupied her mother's position, now had to suffer together with Xinhuan. Thinking like this, Xinyu felt that she was not that lowly to be a concubine of Huang Fuhao, and even somewhat complacent. If she were to stay in the Shen residence, the one who would be imprisoned would be her. Xinyu thought like this, but on the second day, a secret news broke out in the Ding capital. This secret news was like a stone thrown into the bottom of the water, stirring up 1,000 waves. It made the people watching the bustle outside to find a new interesting topic to talk about and talked about it non-stop in the streets and alleys, making people talk about it with great relish. It also made the Shen family completely become a bystander's joke. Chapter 674. A shocking secret news broke out in the Ding capital. First, in the early morning before the sky brightened, there was a middle-aged man kneeling in front of the yamen and beating the drum to cry out for injustice, saying that the third master of the Shen residence, Xinhuan, had forcibly abducted a woman and made her a concubine, which was not tolerated by heaven and earth. Although the man looked like a third-rate lowly person, it was unknown where he had inherited a good tongue. It could almost be said that his tongue was like a lotus flower. Even talking and singing was very exciting, and in a short time it attracted a large group of commoners to watch the bustle. In less than half an hour, the entire Ding capital knew about this matter. Because of the heated lawsuit between the Chen and Shen family, the commoners in the Ding capital knew a lot about this legendary noble concubine, young lady Zhang Ziqing. Xinhuan was willing to divorce his wife of many years for her, and even did it without the slightest bit of face. Everyone would speculate more. Some busybodies inquired that Zhang Ziqing was the daughter of old General Shen's old friend. She was well-educated, gentle and elegant, and her temperament was even better than Chen Roqiu. She was even pregnant with Xinhuan's child, so naturally people's hearts would be biased towards Zhang Ziqing. But early in the morning today, this middle-aged man brought along a youth to kneel in front of the yamen's doors and smashed the faces of those who said that Zhang Ziqing was good. It was said that Xinhuan abducted others' wife, but everyone were not fools. The distance between the Lu province and the Ding capital was not close, and in the beginning it was Tsang Zaiqing herself who came to the Shen residence to seek shelter, and also claimed that she was not married. One feared that Tsang Zaiqing was the one who threw herself at it. Thinking about it, Shen Wan was intelligent and refined for a lifetime, but at the end he was unable to see Tsang Zaiqing's true face. After raising another's wife for such a long time, the green hat on his head could already be planted with grass. As for the words that the man said, no one doubted it at all. One reason was that the man was still holding the marriage certificate in his hands, and the white and black words and even the official seal were all in Tsang Zaiqing's name. Secondly, the young man who came along looked exactly like Tsang Zaiqing, except that he looked a little more silent and at a loss. Everyone pointed at him and discussed, taking it as a joke that was hard to come by in a few decades. It was said that there were many disputes in wealthy families, but he didn't expect the master of a wealthy family to be so muddle-headed. Originally, if it was in the past, this matter could be suppressed and it would not spread throughout the entire Ding capital so quickly. But today, this man had appeared out of the blue, beating the drum early in the morning to complain about his grievances. It was difficult to suppress it. Besides, the Yaman's servants also knew how to read people's expressions. Now that Shen Wan's entire family was locked up in prison, who would care about Shen Wan's reputation? They joined the crowd in watching the joke. In the Qin residence, in a remote courtyard, Chen Roqiu was convulsing with laughter when she heard the news that Shi Qing had inquired from outside. She had become more and more mischievous, and she had become even more slovenly. The more he behaved like this, the more he was disliked in the Chen family. But she did not care much about it, as the meaning of living was to pull down the Chen family, and there was no doubt that Chen Roqiu had done it. Chen Roqiu did it. After being Shen Wan's wife for so many years, she knew something about Shen Wan's life. Adding up bits and pieces, and also bribing a servant under Shen Wan to send this evidence to the hands of Shen Wan's nemesis. She waited uneasily for the news, and finally the good news came. The more Chen Roqiu loved Shen Wan, the more she hated him. It was Shen Wan who made her turn into such a sorry state, so she must not let Tsang Zaiqing and Shen Wan live well. When she knew that the entire Shen family was in prison, Chen Roqiu was happy, but she did not expect that on the second day, it was actually revealed that Tsang Zaiqing had a husband and son. She did not expect that she, who had been astute for a lifetime, would actually lose to a female who abandoned her husband and son. Chen Roqiu was originally laughing crazily, but as she laughed, she felt that there was some bitterness at the corner of her mouth. If she was calmer in the beginning and not so anxious, and sent people to the Lu province to investigate, perhaps the result would not be like this. Shen Wan was a person who could not tolerate sand in his eyes and knew of Tsang Zaiqing's identity. Without Chen Roqiu saying it, he would hate Tsang Zaiqing even more. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.